Chapter 665. Li Yuan really couldn't sit still. Along the way, he pulled Qing Yaojin to sit in the palanquin. Qing Yaojin felt like he was sitting on pins and needles, but he was still detailed and honest like a good baby. Whatever Li Yuan asked, he would answer. Just like that, the two of them sat in an ordinary palanquin, disguised as they went out of the palace, and then circled around a few times. Under the crooked tree in Tonghui Lane, Qing Yaojin was kicked down by Li Yuan, who ordered him to guard Tonghui Lane and not let even a fly in. Only then did he impatiently urge the palanquin driver to come to the tavern. At this time, at the entrance of the tavern, Zhang Feng sat cross-legged under the crooked tree, looking at the wooden door that had just been replaced, which was very different from the original color of the house. He wondered if he should replace the whole house with iron. Even that door directly changed to look like a mace. How long had it been since he knew Lao Li? The door had been broken at least 3 times. If it was kicked down, then wouldn't everyone in Chang'an city want to come and kick his door? Then what would Zhang Feng become? And just as Zhang Feng was sketching in his mind whether to replace the iron door or rebuild a reinforced concrete house, Li Yuan's excited voice sounded at the door. "Boy, old man is here." This sudden voice gave Zhang Feng a big fright. But this voice, in the whole Chang'an city, only old man Li had it. It was arrogant, unruly. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a headache. He got up and looked at Li Yuan, who walked down the palanquin in a hurry, and said, "Old man Li, what are you dressed up like?" He suspected that old man Li ran out of a mental hospital. His hair was casually tied on his head, and there were even a few big red flowers on his head. The robe on his body was also askew. Li Yuan also didn't care about what Zhang Feng said. He waved his hand and pulled Zhang Feng into the tavern. He glanced at the door and said, "Brat, you should install a door." Hearing this, Zhang Feng's eyes couldn't help but light up. In an instant, countless kinds of doors as thick as city gates flashed through his mind. However, he also heard Li Yuan's teasing. After all, even if this thing was made, where would he put it? Zhang Feng invited the old man to sit down and pointed at the beer and white wine. Li Yuan chose the latter. The two of them sat down. Li Yuan did not care about his image as he drank his wine and looked at Zhang Feng, clicking his tongue nonstop. Zhang Feng felt goosebumps all over his body. "Old man, is your tongue okay?" How could Li Yuan not know that Zhang Feng was mocking him? "You brat, you've been insulting the old man since we met. Do you really think that the old man is senile?" Zhang Feng pursed his lips. Li Yuan continued, "Last time, you tricked the old man and won the old man's resort. You tell me what to do." Zhang Feng was stunned. He suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a land deed in the cellar. He said, "If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. I'll go take a look some other day." "All right, you brat, don't say anything else. The resort is yours. However, this thing, it's really not easy for you to take." Li Yuan's arrival, Zhang Feng really didn't expect it. However, he could more or less think of something. However, when he came up and said this, Zhang Feng was really a little dumbfounded. "Uncle, you're going a little overboard here. I won this with my own ability. If you didn't mention this, I really would have forgotten. When the time comes, I might still give it to that brat Li Gan. However, since you said this, then I really won't give it to him." Li Yuan really didn't plan to take it back. He was just angry. He pulled up his sleeves and took out a deck of poker cards from the trash. He said, "Come, let's play again. Old man doesn't believe that I can't beat you this time." How could Zhang Feng dare to play again with Li Yuan? He heard from Chen Tiniu that this master basically turned the house upside down. He looked for people to play poker every day. Although this skill was not considered a master, with Zhang Feng's current ability, if he wanted to win, he would have to rely on his own ability. However, the academy's matters were a mess now. How could he have the time to do this? Seeing that there was still more than a month left, the academy was about to be completed. The books and teaching materials were still not settled. How could Zhang Feng not be anxious? He thought that Li Yuan came because of the military studies matter. He was originally prepared to show off. However, looking at it now, he didn't come because of that matter. However, Zhang Feng couldn't help but wonder. It seemed that this old guy didn't know. However, that didn't make sense. Lao Li came back yesterday. Moreover, today's matter was so big. It was impossible that Lao Li didn't know. Moreover, he even dug a hole for Lao Li. There was no reason for Lao Li to not see it. However, the old master actually didn't know. Then there was something to be said. Li Yuan saw that Zhang Feng didn't want to play cards. He could only put away the cards and hold on to him tightly. However, he didn't let go of the courtyard. Kid, do you know how much money that courtyard spent? Last time, my skills weren't as good as others. However, this matter, old man really has to argue with you. Stop. Zhang Feng hurriedly shouted for him to stop. Old master, you should also know about my matters, right? I'm here on the emperor's orders. If you blindly meddle and the emperor blames, I won't be able to shoulder it. Li Yuan didn't even need to think. This kid was fooling people. Even if Li Shimin dared to say that, now that he, Lao Tzu, was here, even if Li Shimin and Li Shimin came, what could he do? Kid, don't think that you can fool the old man with this. Do you think that the old man is really muddle-headed? Come. Let's talk about the matter of this courtyard today. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. Isn't it just a courtyard? Do you need to go so far? However, Zhang Feng's eyes turned. He sighed and said, Ayaya, forget it. I thought that the old master was really loyal. So it's still like this. However, isn't it just a courtyard? In a moment, this kid will return the deed to you. When Li Yuan saw that this kid actually returned the courtyard to him, he couldn't help but become anxious. Today, he really didn't come to the courtyard. He shot a glance at Zhang Feng. How could he not know that this kid was also testing him? Li Yuan said indifferently, that's enough. Don't think that the old man doesn't know. That courtyard, your woman has already prepared it for you. Your mouth says it's good, but what did you do behind the scenes? Chapter 666. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. Ever since he won this villa at the gambling table last time, he had completely forgotten about this matter. If it weren't for the old man mentioning it today, he might not even remember that there was such a thing. But where did Jingshu get this news? Why did she go to tidy up the house? However, Zhang Feng instantly understood that this must have been spread by Chen Tiniu, that big mouth. When he saw a woman, he didn't even know how to walk. As long as Jingshu slightly thought about it, none of them would be able to fight. No wonder the old man would be so angry. But this wasn't right. Even if Jingshu went to tidy it up again, the villa had never been lived in before. This wasn't a big deal, right? Why didn't he want the villa now that it was returned to him? There was a ghost. There was a big ghost inside. Sure enough, Li Yuan's words instantly made Zhang Feng understand. Kid, I heard that your house on Shao Mountain was built differently from the houses at the foot of the mountain and all the houses in the Tang dynasty. Zhang Feng nodded. He didn't understand what the old man was selling in his gourd, but Zhang Feng also had his own plans. He patted his chest and said, that's needless to say. This is our Zhang Feng's product. How can it be compared with these ordinary adobe houses? Moreover, this academy is something that I poured my heart and soul into. Shouldn't I tidy it up properly? Li Yuan glanced at Zhang Feng and said smugly, do you know that this brick wall can only be used by those rich and powerful people with meritorious deeds? I know. But aren't we viscounts now? In any case, we're also people with status. We can also use this brick, right? Besides, this is the academy. There's no rule that says that the academy can't use bricks, right? During the Tang dynasty, there were rules governing the use of bricks. Ordinary people would either build mud houses or use stone strips to build their houses. However, bricks were strictly controlled. After all, they were not only used to build houses, but also the main material for building city walls. Those who were not powerful and meritorious were not qualified to use them. If bricks were used rashly, then the slave would be demoted to the border area and would never be able to enter the city. As for the rich merchants, they would be demoted to slaves. Similarly, he would never be able to rise again. However, the academy was different. Originally, there were not many people who built academies in the Tang dynasty. Moreover, the academy did not explicitly state that bricks could not be used, so Zhang Feng took advantage of this loophole. Even if he was caught, He wasn't afraid. On the one hand, he was building an academy. If anyone dared to say anything, then please take out the relevant documents and say that the Tang dynasty's law stated that the building of an academy could not be done by turning stones. If anyone dared to take out something, then he would definitely become the target of the world's literati. On the other hand, he was a viscount at this time, the Viscount of Lingshan. The bricks he was using now were not the common black bricks in the Tang dynasty, and they were not as big as the bricks in the present. His red bricks were the ones in the future. This kind of brick did not belong to the category of bricks used by the government. Therefore, Zhang Feng wasn't afraid that the government would find trouble with him. Seeing that he couldn't threaten Zhang Feng, Li Yuan had to give up. Li Yuan snorted twice and then gave up. Boy, you have foresight. If the higher-ups investigate this thing, something will happen sooner or later. Fortunately, the old man still has some connections in the court. If you ask the old man, maybe the old man, okay, hey, old man, you'd better put it away. Could it be that the person you know is more powerful than Zhang Sun Wuji, the minister of the Ministry of Personnel and the assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice? Li Yuan glared. In the end, there was nothing he could do. He could only snort twice again and say, Ayaya, you boy, you don't know how to respect the old and love the young at all. I don't know how you are a teacher. How do you want to educate your students? If all the students you teach in the future are like you, how can it be? If there is no one watching over you, boy, won't you turn the sky upside down? After Li Yuan finished speaking, he patted his forehead and said, I remember now. That Yu Shernan was also tricked by you to go up the mountain. That godly Dr. Sun Simiao also went up the mountain. The old man also heard that Yu Shernan has already announced that he will stop writing. Moreover, he seems to be looking for Chu Suiliang and the others. This is all thanks to you, boy, right? Zhang Feng was talked about by Li Yuan in such a way that he couldn't figure out what Li Yuan was going to do in an instant. He looked at Li Yuan suspiciously and asked, Old man, what do you want to say? Li Yuan didn't say anything. He only took out a brocade-covered item from his embroidered robe and patted it in his hand, saying, The old man has a volume of Shangshu here. Boy, you should know its weight, right? Hearing this, Zhang Feng's eyes instantly widened to the size of copper bells. Shangshu. This was one of the 5 classics of Confucianism. Back in the Western Jin dynasty, wasn't this thing lost? If this was true, then, how could it be in the old man's hands? Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel his heart heat up. With a bang, he stood up. And Li Yuan seemed to have long known the fatal attraction of this thing to scholars. Instead, he covered the bamboo slip with his embroidered robe. Looking at the slowly approaching Zhang Feng, he said, Boy, what do you want to do? Don't come over. Zhang Feng rubbed his hands and said, The old man is really loyal. This boy here really lacks this kind of good thing. If you are willing to part with it, we can talk about anything. Chapter 667. The Shangshu, in the annotations to the 13 classics, that was commonly used in later generations was the difference between Jinwen Shangshu and Guwen Shangshu. In fact, this thing was very easy to understand. The book Shangshu had long been lost in the West Jin dynasty. Later, in archaeology, and from the words of the previous dynasties, it was compiled. Therefore, only the Shangshu after the West Jin dynasty was actually a fake Shangshu, also called Jinwen Shangshu. The Shangshu before the West Jin dynasty was the real Guwen Shangshu. Zhang Feng was in college before. He was fooled by others that the girl in the ancient literature department was particularly good, so he stupidly took this course. But after he went, he was dumbfounded. There were only 3 people in this class. And the 2 of them were rough men, plus a dinosaur girl. How many King mud horses did he have in his heart? But it was too late to run away. After all, as long as he took the course, he would need to count credits when he graduated. In addition, the female professor finally saw a normal human being who was willing to take this elective course. She couldn't help but treat Zhang Feng as a treasure and take care of him. However, at that time, Zhang Feng only felt that this course was so good that he wanted to die. But now, he really had to thank the female professor. If she hadn't forcibly instilled the knowledge of ancient literature at that time, not to mention other things, he wouldn't have been able to learn the 100 family names, the 3-character classic, and so on, and the 18 hygge beats that he specially studied in order to pretend to be cool and flirt with the girl in the music department next door. Although he also signed up for the music elective course. But now it seemed. He was so excited that he wanted to find an artist to draw a portrait of the professor and offer 3 incense sticks every day. However, in order not to shock the world, Zhang Feng could only give up. After all, in this era, if someone knew that your teacher was a woman, then you were done for. Therefore, when Zhang Feng saw this Xianxia that hadn't been revealed yet, he was so excited. He dared to conclude that this thing must be the Guan Xianxia. Zhang Feng didn't ask where Li Yuan came from. Just by looking at the embroidered auspicious cloud pattern on the silk, he could see that this thing was extraordinary. If it was the Jinwen Xianxia, that kind of thing from Landa Street, did it need to be so precious? It could only be said that there was something wrong with the old man. At this moment, just as Zhang Feng's hand was about to touch Li Yuan's embroidered robe, Li Yuan smiled. He had found this item among the treasures of a great Confucian scholar of the Sui dynasty after destroying the Sui dynasty. He also knew the value of this item, but it was not a good idea to keep it hidden in the library. The reason why he wanted to take it out today was to see if this brat knew anything about it. More importantly, he wanted to take revenge for what he had done to him. After all, after being pretentious by Zhang Feng several times, Li Yuan flew into a rage. Seeing Zhang Feng's appearance now, Li Yuan's entire body instantly felt incomparably comfortable. Boy, you should know how precious this thing is. However, this thing can't be easily imparted to others. You should understand this principle. Moreover, when the old man obtained this thing, he almost used up more than half of his family property. Otherwise, the old man wouldn't have paid any attention to the Guanlong 8 great families. Zhang Feng was a little surprised when he heard this. At this moment, the preciousness of Xianxia was even more apparent. It was too exaggerated. Although he could hear that Li Yuan was exaggerating a little, how could he not pay any attention to the Guanlong group? You're bragging, aren't you? They could make Emperor Yang of the Sui dynasty hover between life and death. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any Li Tang. You're telling me that if you didn't buy this thing, you wouldn't pay any attention to the Guanlong group? You're bragging too much. Do you think you're the Li family of Longnan of the 5 surnames and 7 watches? However, Zhang Feng didn't dare to say it directly. He could only lower his head and say, "Old man, you're awesome. Such a good thing, it must be the Guan Xianxia, right? Haha, at least you know what's good for you." Hearing this, Li Yuan laughed out loud and said while stroking his beard. The corners of Zhang Feng's mouth twitched as he watched Li Yuan unhurriedly untie the silk bag. In the next moment, a roll of slightly reddish-brown and slightly dark bamboo slips slowly leaked out. Although the silk threads connecting the bamboo slips had been replaced with new ones, based on the color of the bamboo slips, this thing was definitely the Guan Xianxia. This was a real treasure. If he could get it, then the reputation of White Deer College would instantly soar by a large margin. However, until now, Li Yuan still hadn't said what he wanted. Instead, he talked about how he obtained this thing with great difficulty. This let Zhang Feng know that the difficulty of obtaining this thing was undoubtedly greater. Zhang Feng couldn't help but sigh. He resisted and didn't allow himself to look at the bamboo slips that were jingling because of Li Yuan. He said, "Although I know the preciousness of this thing, there's an old saying. A gentleman doesn't take what others like. So, forget it, forget it. To be able to see it today is also a great fortune in life." Li Yuan was stunned. He looked in astonishment at Zhang Feng, who changed his face faster than flipping a book. He asked, "Kid, this is the authentic Guan Xianxia. Don't tell me you don't want it?" Chapter 668. I want it. But you made it sound so awesome. You clearly want to use the pig slaughtering knife to kill people. Do you think Lao Tzu is a fool? Is it those sour literati who see the book as if they see the soul? What do you want? If you say it will be good. Why do you have to beat around the bush? Lao Tzu doesn't care. Although this thing is good, once it exceeds Zhang Feng's tolerance, even if it's a gold mountain, Zhang Feng will turn around and leave. Want a hammer? Don't you want your life? Li Yuan also instantly felt that he had played too much. He once again saw how difficult this kid was to deal with. However, he was not discouraged. After all, this thing had aroused this kid's interest. He was not afraid that he would not take the bait. However, his purpose was definitely not this small tavern. He sighed and said, "You've been carrying it around in the yard all day. You've become useless. I heard that your Shao Mountain is doing well now. Do you want to go with Old Man for a walk? If Old Man is happy, what's wrong with giving this thing to you?" Zhang Feng was a little suspicious. However, he finally understood the old master's intention from this sentence. Did he want to go to Shao Mountain? But this is what you said. Old master, I'm very straightforward. Don't play with me. If I don't play with you, why should I play with you? Li Yuan said with a smile. Later, Li Yuan called people and basically emptied Zhang Feng's wine. He also urged Zhang Feng to get a lot of delicious food. Then, the group of people set off leisurely. Along the way, Zhang Feng's group attracted a lot of attention. It was basically like moving house. They brought everything from the small chamber pot to the big road bedboard. Zhang Feng could not help but be suspicious. Is this old master planning to settle down on Shao Mountain? Zhang Feng did not know how to ride a horse. In the end, he had no choice but to arrange a sedan chair. Only then did the group of people leave Chang'an city and leisurely head toward Shao Mountain. Along the way, Zhang Feng was thinking about the book, Shangshu, and what the old man was going to do next. However, no matter how much he thought about it, Zhang Feng still couldn't figure out what the old man was going to do. However, Zhang Feng discovered more and more that he could not see through Li Yuan. He was harder to deal with than Lao Li. At the very least, he could tell something from Li Shimin's words and deeds. However, this old man simply didn't play his cards according to common sense. This was what gave Zhang Feng a headache. In the end, Zhang Feng didn't think about it anymore. Once he went up Shao Mountain, it would be better to get rid of the old man as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be cheated badly. Wasn't it just a villa? How much could it be worth? At most, it would be worth 1,000 taels of gold, right? But why didn't he let it go? Zhang Feng didn't know the scale of this villa, nor had he seen it. Otherwise, if he saw the villa, which occupied an area not much smaller than Shao Mountain Academy, Zhang Feng would shut up. He would definitely wake up laughing in his dreams. However, these were all in the future. At this time, with the bumps of the sedan chair and the noises, the sedan chair finally stopped at the market at the foot of Shao Mountain. Getting off the sedan chair. Looking at the scene at the foot of Shao Mountain, Li Yuan couldn't help but feel a little confused. Old man remembers that this place was originally a barren land. Boy, is this really Shao Mountain? Zhang Feng looked around proudly and said, "Old man, what do you think of this place?" Li Yuan pointed to the market here and asked, "These people here, did they all come here when Shao Mountain was established?" Shao Mountain. When Z was conquering the world, Li Yuan had been stationed here, so he still had a little influence here. This was actually a barren mountain. But how long had this boy been here? The plain at the foot of the mountain had been slowly flattened out. There were banks, food stalls, and even thatched sheds. Moreover, there was an inn written on a piece of tree bark. Although most of the buildings here were now built with thatched sheds and tree shacks, Li Yuan could faintly feel that in time, this place would become the second Chang'an city. But it was already the case. After all the way here, there were only a few people who could afford to buy in Chang'an city. What about here? Brothels and banks were complete. And the people here seemed to be much richer than the people in Chang'an city. Bargaining could be seen everywhere. Even here, Li Yuan saw that many merchants were transporting wood and stone. Looking at their posture, they wanted to do a big job. This was all made by this boy. Zhang Feng shrugged and said, "Old man, there is something you don't know, right? Actually, business is like a piece of meat. When the meat is placed here, there will naturally be people who will smell the meat and come. Slowly, not only will there be meat and people who eat it, there will also be a large number of things that will be born from the operation. Business is a gathering of people, not a decision that can be made by one person. I just dug up Shao Mountain here and stepped out a road here. Naturally, people will follow this road and slowly turn it into a spacious road that can reach directly to Chang'an." Li Yuan always felt that Zhang Feng's words were very roundabout and scholarly, but his intuition told him that what Zhang Feng said was really so reasonable. He could not help but ask in surprise, "Is this what your academy wants to teach?" Chapter 669. Zhang Feng took a deep breath and said, "This is a kind of knowledge. My teacher once said it, a great person once said it. The sample meaning of these words is like this. Actually, there is no road in this world. When more people walk, there will naturally be a road. Great person? There is no road in this world? When more people walk, there will naturally be a road." Li Yuan was silent. His expression was somewhat frightening. After Zhang Feng finished talking about this matter, the two of them walked along the small path and climbed the mountain. Along the way, Li Yuan was pondering over Zhang Feng's words. Until when they could no longer climb, Li Yuan's accompanying bodyguard hurriedly brought over Zhang Feng's reclining chair. Even Zhang Feng's tiger skin that had been missing for a long time, under Zhang Feng's shocked and angry gaze, slowly placed it under Li Yuan's buttocks. After resting for a while, Li Yuan looked at the whitewashed white houses halfway up the mountain, or houses that were being built with red bricks. He asked in surprise, "Feng Zi, what is going on with the houses here? Why does it look like every house is almost exactly the same? And this layout, old man can't quite understand. It seems like there are 2 floors. Could this row of houses be a single family? But why does it look like there are countless families?" At first, no one could see the reason for Zhang Feng's houses. However, only when the foundation of this house was completed and the walls were slowly being built, could one see that this house was very different from all the houses of this era. Because these houses were all conjoined houses of the later era. That is to say, 2 rooms for a family. Although they looked somewhat short and small, not as large as the houses of this era, in terms of function and the overall structure of the house, they flung the houses of this era by several streets. At the very least, Zhang Feng was not bragging. At this time, with these people under him now, if they were to go out and build a house, they would not need 5 days to complete the main frame of a house. If it was an adobe house, it would be strange if you could finish it without a month or so. On the other hand, the red bricks burned quickly. It was not as thick as the green bricks of this era. Therefore, in Li Yuan's view, this house seemed to collapse with a push. Facing Li Yuan's inquiry, Zhang Feng just smiled. "Old man, there's something you don't know. Excluding the craftsmen and workers, there are more than 1,000 students on the White Deer Academy's mountain. Although I allowed them to participate in the construction of my house, it's not like anyone can build a house just because they want to. After all, if someone is opportunistic and casually builds a shack for me with a few tree branches, then wouldn't my test become a mere decoration? But I don't have enough manpower right now. Moreover, we don't have enough funds, so I came up with this brilliant idea. Although this house doesn't look sturdy and the walls are so thin, I can guarantee that this thing will become a house that everyone in the Tang dynasty wants to live in." Li Yuan's interest could not help but be aroused. "Then I'd like to see what's so different about your house. Although your house seems to be built faster than that adobe house from what I've seen, the bricks aren't cooked yet. Can they withstand a punch from a strong man?" Zhang Feng smiled. Pointing at a Jinwu guard behind Li Yuan, he said, "Why don't you let your guard go and push it for me to see? Old man, let's make a bet." "Stop." As soon as Li Yuan heard Zhang Feng mention a bet, he felt uncomfortable all over. Now that he heard Zhang Feng mention the bet again, how could he not have goosebumps all over his body? Waving his hand, he let the Jinwu guard test the wall. Under the Jinwu guard's side impact, although the wall was like a bare bamboo pole, swaying non-stop in the wind, it still did not fall. And those craftsmen only looked at the Jinwu guard and continued to work, too lazy to care. It seemed that this kind of thing happened every day. This time, Li Yuan was somewhat unable to sit still. Hinting the Jinwu guard to pick up a few bricks to test, Li Yuan became even more stupefied. His sharp eyes could not help but see that someone actually added lime powder into a pile of silt-like things, causing Li Yuan to become stupefied again. "Feng Zi, could it be that the thing that can make the wall so sturdy is this silt?" Zhang Feng glanced at the cement. He did not feel like explaining anything to Li Yuan. He only said faintly, "This is a kind of adhesive that I invented." Once it completely absorbs these bricks and dries up, if a strong man like you bumps into it again, then the only thing that will be broken will be his arm. Hearing this, Li Yuan could not help but be shocked. A moment later, Li Yuan got up, squinted his eyes, and then pointed at the faintly visible waterfall. He said, "Feng Zi, old man does not want my villa anymore, but old man has a condition. Somewhere, make a slightly bigger house for old man. It must be better than theirs." Zhang Feng glanced at the brick waterfall. "Isn't it just a villa?" "But this Xianxia must be given to me as a deposit? After all, the cost of building this villa will definitely be dozens of times more than the houses these people live in. When the time comes to build it, you will know that your Xianxia was not spent in vain." Chapter 670. Actually, there was a reason why Zhang Feng agreed to Li Yuan's request. After all, building a villa for Yu Shinan and the other masters was the same as building another one. Anyway, they were all together. When the time came, it would still be a connected villa. This would save a lot of trouble. If he really only built one for the old master, then he had to wait. After all, he really didn't have the time and spare money now. As the two walked, they discussed the matter of the villa. With that said, Li Yuan's eyes became more and more heated. After learning that Yu Shinan and the others would be Li Yuan's neighbors in the future, Li Yuan was very excited. After all, if he were to be alone in this academy, he would definitely be driven crazy. However, no matter what Zhang Feng said, Li Yuan just smiled and bypassed the matter of Xianxia, which made Zhang Feng so angry that his face turned red and his neck thick. But he still couldn't do anything to Li Yuan. In this way, one old and one young quarreled all the way up Shao Mountain, leaving only the stunned craftsmen and students on the ground. At this time, Hao Chujun and the others who originally wanted to come up and say hello saw this situation. It was not until a long time after Zhang Feng and the others had left that they reacted. "What's this situation? Who's this old man?" Li Yifu looked at the long line of furniture moving and couldn't help but be stunned. This house was all made of mahogany. Although many things were packed in that big wooden box, from the carved patterns on the wooden box and the mahogany material, it could be seen that the old man's background was definitely not simple. This doesn't look like a great scholar. If it's a great scholar, why would he quarrel with the dean like this? But it seems that he wants to live on the mountain for a long time. There's no harm in visiting more in the future. Guozhengyi picked up a pile of cement and stood behind the crowd and said, "Okay, he's already up the mountain. After all, this has nothing to do with us. It's better to finish the course properly." Hao Chujun heard this and couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "How long have we been here? Why do I always feel that Dean Zhang Feng is ordering us around like long-term workers?" Li Yifu heard this and couldn't help but put on a straight face and said, "What do you mean? Are you questioning the dean? There's an ancient saying." All right. Don't talk to me like that. Do you guys want credits or not? Now, the academy is still a wasteland. How can it have the time to teach you? Don't tell me it's on this barren mountain." Just as the few of them were muttering, Du Go appeared out of nowhere and berated everyone. He then took a look at Zhang Feng and the Grand Emperor's figures and hurriedly ran up the mountain. This was a big matter. The retired emperor seemed to want to stay here for a long time. How could this be? With retired emperor's temperament, he would definitely ruin the atmosphere here. He had to tell this matter to Li Chengqian and the others as soon as possible so that they could think of a way to trick the retired emperor down the mountain. Otherwise, no one would have a good life in the future. When Du Go climbed up the mountain, Zhang Feng had already brought Li Yuan into the wooden house that Zhang Feng was temporarily staying in. Seeing this situation, Du Go asked old He and the others where Li Chengqian and the others went. Only then did he hurriedly run to the chicken farm. From afar, he saw Li Chengqian and Cheng Chumo sitting on a rock by the river, directing a large group of children on the mountain. They were leaning on shelled eggs. Du Go couldn't care about anything else. He hurriedly pulled Li Chengqian and the others to the side and said, "The retired emperor went up the mountain." What? When the few of them heard this, they couldn't help but ask in unison as if they were constipated, "When did this happen?" "Just now, with Feng Zi." When the few of them heard this, they couldn't help but feel like their heads were about to explode. The retired emperor was good at everything except that he was now obsessed with poker cards. When he saw someone, even if he squatted on the floor, he could squat for an entire day to play with that person. He wouldn't stop until that person was left with only a piece of cloth. At this time, Li Yuan was in the palace. That matter was even more difficult to avoid than the god of plagues. There was no other way. Everyone lost miserably. Besides, they were all young people. Could an old man like you get involved? Thinking like this, the few of them instantly lost their calm. They hurriedly brought a beggar's chicken and ran to Zhang Feng's small house. There was no other way. If the retired emperor stayed here, no one would be able to be at peace. Not far away, Ma Zhou, who was following old eunuch Gao to feed pigs, and the old eunuch saw the crown prince and the others roasting meat excitedly just now. The old eunuch's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. He had long wanted to go over and freeload a chicken. Ever since he ate it twice last time, this thing always lingered in his mind. Not to mention, previously in the palace, it was the food that the emperor and empress pulled down. It basically went into their stomachs. They were used to eating good food. Although this porridge was very good, they couldn't eat porridge all day, right? Moreover, they were eating porridge on the side while watching others nibble on the chicken. Who could stand this stimulation? However, at this time, when old Gao saw the few of them leaving in a hurry, he couldn't help but push Ma Zhou and said, "Boy, do you want to eat chicken?" Chapter 671. Li Yuan's ostentatious display. It had already spread like wildfire on the mountain. Especially now, it had just reached Yushi hour, which was also the time Zhang Feng set for eating. Although the people of Chang'an liked to wake up early in the morning to eat, and then say that they were going for a stroll, or to find something to do, to earn money, and so on, and only at night would they eat here. But Zhang Feng's place was completely different. Eating at Yushi hour was right. But everyone only had half a bowl of porridge, plus a millet-steamed bun mixed with unknown things. At noon, everyone had a big bowl of porridge, plus a black millet-steamed bun. There was a difference between the porridge in the morning and at noon. In the morning, there was no meat added, and everyone could not chew out a trace of meat in the thick porridge. But at noon, it was different. This porridge was as thick as the dry rice they ate on a daily basis. The most important thing was that there was meat in the porridge. If they were lucky, if they could stir out a few meat bones, that night when they were hungry, they could use the broken pot to cook it, add some tender roots dug out from the soil, and make do with a meal. Or they could burn the chicken bones and pig bones in the fire and grind them into powder. These were all good things. But the meal at night was different. The porridge was still the same porridge, but everyone had to take 2 bowls. A bowl of porridge, a bowl of chicken mixed with wild vegetables and unknown things, meat soup, there was pork, goose meat, eggs, and so on. It could be said that this meal at Yushi hour was very much anticipated by everyone. It was also at this time every day, all the people on Yushi Mountain, no matter how tired they were, would raise their bowls high, as if they were celebrating the new year, and grin foolishly. But today was different. Li Yuan's high-profile appearance ceremony was everyone lining up to get food, or squatting on the ground to eat the food, which they talked about with great relish. You didn't see that scene today. You could smell the fragrance of wine from afar, this wine aroma, it's like the imperial wine of the palace. The people of Tonghui Fong, who were squatting together and separated from these people, looked at those people who were talking animatedly as if they were looking at fools, and said, "Only you can. Do you know that the wine that the old man took is also our dean's?" Hearing this, in an instant, those people and craftsmen could not stay calm. What? What did you say? This wine was made by the dean? Impossible. When Lao Tzu was rich before, he was also a person who drank wine. He even drank that 1 copper, a bamboo barrel of beer. That thing, that taste, is simply better than that wine. This wine is really brewed by the dean? Doesn't that mean that our dean is from heaven? By the way, you guys seem to be from the same street as the dean. Can you tell me about the dean? Tonghui Fong's people, as they heard this, they were eating and to eat, while. We're talking about our dean. That's an incredible figure. Do you all know Chang'an University? Hearing this, everyone nodded their heads like chickens pecking rice, slurping the porridge along the eaves of the bowls, and staring at the people of Tonghui Fong. The person who spoke put down the bowl that was bigger than his face, wiped his mouth and said, "Actually, this dean, I heard long ago that when he was born, guess what? What? Have you ever seen a child not cry after the midwife gave birth? But our dean is different. The moment he was born, he looked up to the sky and laughed." Hiss. Hearing this, everyone could not help but be dumbfounded. Everyone asked curiously, "Then isn't the dean really a god? Who doesn't cry when they are born? This is really different. No wonder he was conferred the title of Viscount by the Emperor at such a young age, and he has such ability. He is different from us from the moment he was born." That's right. This is what the temporary chancellor of Chang'an University, the old scholar, said personally. And you have not seen it. Every time the dean does a good deed, his head is shining with golden light. Everyone was shocked. No wonder the dean never wore a hat, so it was because wearing a hat affected his supernatural powers? In that case, Ayaya, aren't we doing something for the immortals? The people of Tonghui Fong snorted. Their meaning was self-evident. Don't you eat? Even eating can't stop your mouths, can it? Old He and the others, who had just finished distributing the food, were listening while distributing the food. At first, they did not think much of it, but the more they talked, the more they were going overboard. If they let these people continue to gossip, what would happen? After Old He shouted, he did not care about these people anymore. Instead, he took out a big pot of braised red pig trotters from the temporary kitchen and kicked Zhu, who was holding a bowl to drink the braised water, and said, "Damn it, eat, 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 eat. If you follow those stubborn people all day, you will eat to death sooner or later. Hurry up and send the food to Feng Zi." Oh. Only then did Guzi stare at the bowl that belonged to him, carried the bowl of porridge, and followed Old He into the small wooden house. Chapter 672. The atmosphere in the small wooden house was somewhat strange. At this time, Zhang Feng had a cold face, his back facing Li Yuan and Li Chengqian as he ate the beggar's chicken. Li Yuan sniffed from time to time. That aroma instantly made Li Yuan's stomach growl again. What was even more infuriating was that those little bastards were eating while smacking their lips. Not only that, but they were also drinking to their heart's content. They didn't even look at him. This made Li Yuan explode with anger. "Ching, Tai Niu, and you little bastards, get over here and kneel down for old man." Li Yuan finally couldn't take it anymore. Hearing this, Li Chengqian and the others' faces instantly changed greatly. "Here, Lao Tzu is the dean. If you go over, fine, tomorrow, get the hell down the mountain for Lao Tzu." This time, these few second-generation masters were in a difficult situation. They clearly knew that these two grandpas were angry, but they still bumped into them. This was great. No matter how today's matter was resolved, with Li Yuan's habit of holding grudges, in the future, no matter if he stayed on the mountain or went down the mountain, when the time came, these few people wouldn't have a good time. But what could they do? This was all Feng Zi's business. You two immortals fighting, what did it have to do with us? And just at this time, as luck would have it, the appearance of Old He and the stupefied Guzi instantly made Li Chengqian and the others feel as if they had met a big savior. Wow, it smells so good. This is the braised pig trotters you tinkered with? Come, Grandpa, you also want to eat some? You can smell the fragrance of this thing. I can't take it anymore, I'm going to *CK his mother. Under the fragrance of the braised pig trotters, Cheng Chumo was the first to be unable to resist surrendering. He grabbed a pig trotter, hugged it, and gnawed on it. On the stubble on his mouth, fat dripped down from the corners of his mouth, causing Li Yuan's eyes to turn red. He personally picked up a pig trotter for Li Yuan and said, "This old man, please have a taste. This was made by our Fengzi after staying up late a few days ago. He said that there would be an important guest these few days. Fortunately, I heard a large group of magpies chirping here early this morning. Look, just as it was braised, you came." When Uncle He was at the door, he glanced around and saw two people fighting. From the matter of the servants Li Yuan brought up the mountain, as well as those fellows he had never seen in his entire life, how could he not know that this master was a person who could not be provoked? But now Feng Zi was actually fighting with him? Wasn't that just asking for trouble? Under Uncle He's excuse, Li Yuan still could not resist the temptation of delicious food in the end. After looking at the bright red pig trotters, Li Yuan snorted twice. For the sake of this pig trotter, kid, old man will let you off for now. Let's argue after the meal. Humph, I thought you weren't going to eat anymore. Zhang Feng also snorted. Then, as if in a fit of pique, he glared at Li Yuan. The two just stared at each other and ate in a fit of pique, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. There was something strange. There was something very strange about this. But at this time, these two did not say anything. What could they do? Originally, they were still waiting to eat a good meal. Now it was great. They were here to eat between the cracks. However, the few of them were even more curious about what was going on with Feng Zi. Just as everyone had their own thoughts, a large pot of pig trotters was basically wiped out. Fortunately, in the end, Zhang Feng hurriedly blocked the few of them and left some for Sun Simiao, Old Gao, and the others. He also sent a jar of fine wine that he brought from the shop to each of them. Only then did he stop. Li Yuan looked at Zhang Feng's expression that was like an angry little wife and was also speechless. After waving his hand and driving away the few bastards, he picked his teeth and took out the shangshu from his bosom and threw it to Zhang Feng. In an instant, the moment Zhang Feng hugged the shangshu, his smile was as brilliant as a flower. Yo, old man, you should be a little gentler. This thing is precious. If by any chance it bumps into something, it will make one's heart ache. Li Yuan rolled his eyes. You still know that this thing is precious? Such a precious thing, can't old man feel some heartache? You little bastard, you actually want to be angry with me. You are simply, if it was in the past, old man would have slapped you. Zhang Feng chuckled and was not embarrassed. Instead, he said, this is your fault. You know that this kid has a one-track mind. You still want to lower yourself to my level? Isn't this what it is? Come. I will toast you with a cup of wine. Will this matter be over? Li Yuan glanced at Zhang Feng and then said lightly, don't. This cup of wine of yours is too precious. I can't afford to drink it. Seeing that Li Yuan did not appreciate it, Zhang Feng knew that the matter was serious. Sure enough, at this time, Li Yuan narrowed his eyes and said, there is no need for empty words. Old man is not interested. However, what is your academy like? Tell the old man in detail. The old man is now very interested in your academy. What do you mean? Very interested in my academy? What do you mean? Could it be that you have taken a fancy to my academy? Zhang Feng was a little dumbfounded. Li Yuan saw Zhang Feng's defensive face and said speechlessly, there is no other meaning. I just want to see what your academy is like. Do you think that the old man wants to snatch your academy? Chapter 673. Zhang Feng felt relieved after hearing this. But at this time, he was still a little worried. This thing was a bit difficult to take. Just now, in a fit of pique, he was actually testing the old man, but he didn't expect that the old man would actually compromise. From the foot of the mountain to the top, he had been inquiring about the academy. This matter made Zhang Feng couldn't help but mutter. If it was really that simple, then it would be good. But now, it seemed that things were far from as simple as he thought. The more this old man compromised, the more uneasy he felt. From the high-profile move of so many things when he went up the mountain today, he could see that it was not right to say that he wanted to live on the mountain for a long time. After all, there was nothing on the mountain now, and they were still squeezed together. That stench, that foot stench that could almost send people away, and that thunder-like snoring, although separated by a room, still made Zhang Feng feel like dying. But even so, Zhang Feng still forced himself to go to the academy every day. At this time, this old man came up. Where did he want to live? There was no place to live. But at this time, Zhang Feng was just guessing. He could only follow the old man's request and tell the old man about the academy in detail. After that, Li Yuan stroked his beard and thought, and then said, Kid, today's book, take it as a gift for me to be the honorary vice president. What? Zhang Feng was completely dumbfounded. He asked again, Old man, what did you say? Li Yuan said with a smile, Why, is it wrong for the old man to be the honorary vice president? Not to mention others, Sun Simiao, Chu Suiliang, and Yu Shinan have to call me when they see me. Do you think you can suppress them? Zhang Feng was anxious. No, old man, what do you mean? Li Yuan nodded. Why not? If not, then return, Shangshu. I will go down the mountain now. Don't. Zhang Feng was anxious. At this time, he finally understood Li Yuan's intention. From the beginning, he was inquiring about this and that, to asking for the villa, and then when he went up the mountain, he displayed his playthings with great fanfare. Good Lord, it turned out that he was digging a big hole for him. Now, could Zhang Feng refuse? If she refused, what if the old man went back with great fanfare and walked down the mountain? Wouldn't that be terrible? What could Zhang Feng say? He could only give a thumbs up and say, Old master, you're awesome. You won. I'm convinced. At the same time, outside the wooden house, a few people stuck their butts out and listened through the crack of the door. They couldn't help but gasp. Oh my God! What is the old man doing? What was he thinking? He actually wants to be the honorary vice principal? This, Chengchumo could not help but exclaim. At this time, everyone finally understood what the two of them were doing. So, the old man was using something that Zhang Feng could not bear to let go to force him to agree to let the old man be the vice principal? However, they were not fools. At this time, although everything was fine in the academy, it was only a matter of time before it aroused the dissatisfaction of the Shandong aristocrats. Another thing was the Imperial College. This was an important place for the Shandong aristocrats in Chang'an City. Before this White Deer College, it was still fine. It did not arouse the covetous eyes of the people and they only took it as a joke. However, now that the miracle doctor went up the mountain and Yushernan had retired from writing, the news of Yushernan going up Shao Mountain would spread sooner or later. When that time came, the old man went up the mountain in a high-profile manner and took the initiative to accept the honorary vice principal. This meant that the old man was shouldering all the responsibility. Although the old man was no longer involved in the imperial court, he still had a lot of connections, especially those aristocrats. Although they did not fall for the old man's tricks, once the old man made a decision. In that case, they would still consider it carefully. After all, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. How many valiant generals were loyal to retired emperor back then? They were all illustrious existences. Moreover, they were not subject to the imperial court's control. If they angered Li Yuan, then could they withstand Li Yuan's fury? At the thought of this, the few of them were deeply shocked. Hurriedly leaving the small wooden hut, they arrived at a place in the valley of Shao Mountain. After lighting a bonfire, Li Chengqian said, I suspect that today's matter was Father's idea. Otherwise, Father Emperor would definitely know about such a big matter as retired emperor leaving the palace. That means that the White Deer College incident has aroused the attention of the Shandong aristocrats after all. Then what do you plan to do? Zhang Sun asked. After a moment of silence, Li Chengqian said faintly, This is not something we can worry about. We just have to take care of our own matters. However, now it's up to Feng Zi. If the academy can be opened before this matter completely explodes, then this matter can be easily solved. Cheng Chumo was stunned. Speak human language, I don't understand. Li Chengqian looked at Cheng Chumo and said, At this time, we are on the side of the people. For the time being, we have the help of the great scholar Yushernan and others. Although we are using my name to the outside world, paper can't hide the truth. They will know that the real owner of this academy. Therefore, Feng Zi is the key. I am very sure that when the time comes to open the gates, those great scholars of Shandong will definitely come together. Then it will really explode. Chapter 674. Coo coo coo. Great pain. In the middle of the night, Zhang Feng's stomach was churning. He couldn't help curling up like a shrimp. Damn it, maybe they used raw water to boil the pig trotters, this mother-f***er. Zhang Feng had diarrhea 5 times in one night. At this time, he only felt uncomfortable as if his whole body was about to collapse. Finally, after a violent contraction of his lower abdomen, Zhang Feng suddenly got up in a hurry, and then stumbled out of the door in a hurry. Before coming to the outhouse, he directly finished his business on the spot. Yes, he couldn't hold it anymore. After squatting for about a quarter of an hour, Zhang Feng only felt that his intestines were about to come out. Then he habitually touched his waist and suddenly remembered that he was in the Tang dynasty, and the toilet paper he carried with him was used up. Chen Tiniu. Tabing, tabing. Zhang Feng had to call someone, but he didn't. Instead, Uncle He hurried over and almost kicked Zhang Feng's head. Uncle He looked at Zhang Feng in surprise and asked, Fengzi, what's wrong with you? Diarrhea. Uncle He, you came at the right time. Do you have any paper? Paper? What do you want paper for? Zhang Feng was speechless. To wipe my ass. Uncle He was stunned. So, you usually use toilet paper to wipe your face? Zhang Feng was also stunned. What else can I do? Let's not talk about it now. Hurry up and get me some paper. Uncle He sighed and secretly called him a prodigal. Then he groped on a tree next to him and handed Zhang Feng a thick stack of leaves, saying, I don't have any paper. That thing is precious. If you don't mind, you can make do with the leaves. In the end, Zhang Feng had no choice but to make do with it. Only then did he enter the small wooden house with Old Ho's help. Their movements finally alerted Zhang Sun and the others. When they went out and saw Zhang Feng's pale face, they were scared out of their wits. Feng Zi, what's wrong with you? Diarrhea. After learning that Zhang Feng was suffering from diarrhea, they rubbed their sleepy eyes and left. When Old He heard Zhang Feng's voice and rushed over, Old He's wife also heard Zhang Feng's voice. At this time, she had already brought over a big bowl of ginger soup. However, there was a layer of black substance floating on the ginger soup. Upon closer inspection, it was actually charcoal powder. Come Feng Zi. Drink this and you'll feel better at night. Tomorrow morning, I'll go find Dr. Sun to take a look at you. As she spoke, Old He's wife took out a packet of white powder wrapped in old Spring Festival couplets from her sleeve. Zhang Feng saw that this was lime powder from his kiln factory. Under his horrified gaze, Old He's wife poured a little lime powder into the bowl. Then, the bowl seemed to be boiling. She held the bowl of water and handed it to Zhang Feng. It seemed that she was going to feed him. Zhang Feng hurriedly stopped her and said, No, I'll have to trouble sister-in-law to bring me a bowl of salt water and a piece of charcoal. When Old He heard that, he said with some displeasure, Feng Zi, these are commonly used things. You'll be able to sleep well after a bowl. Drink it. As he spoke, Old He took the bowl and brought it to Zhang Feng's mouth. Zhang Feng had no choice. It seemed that if he didn't drink it, he wouldn't be able to have a good night. At this time, Li Chengqian and the others put on their clothes and walked out of the door. They looked at the ginger soup and said, Drink it. This thing is a good medicine. If you don't drink that, I have something good here. Do you want to try it? As he spoke, Li Chengqian took out a small porcelain bottle and tossed it in his hand. Zhang Feng's eyes lit up. But Old He's next words still made him drink this bowl of poisonous soup. Regardless of anything else, although it was a little shocking when these things were mixed together, the effect was still very good. At the very least, Zhang Feng's rumbling stomach warmed up after a bowl, and he no longer felt so uncomfortable. Seeing that Zhang Feng was fine, Old He pulled Li Chengqian out of the door and said, Young Master Li, Feng Zi just asked for toilet paper. You know my situation. I can't afford it, so I'll have to trouble young Master Li to quickly buy some for Feng Zi tomorrow. Li Chengqian asked in surprise, Why does he need toilet paper when he has diarrhea in the middle of the night? To wipe his butt. Old He didn't know that this thing was commonly used by people in the upper class, so he said it naturally. But when Li Chengqian heard it, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. What did you say? Feng Zi wants toilet paper to wipe his butt? Old He was also stunned. Young Master Li, don't you know? What did Li Chengqian know? Even his father, the emperor of the dynasty, only gave him coarse cloth. Good lord, this kid used toilet paper? Toilet paper was not cheap in the Tang dynasty. A caddy of toilet paper cost at least 100 copper coins. How could ordinary people afford it? Moreover, this thing was thick and heavy. Only medicine shops would use a little of it, as well as during weddings and funerals. Also, during festivals, window flowers and couplets would be used a little. This was already considered extravagant. Good lord, this kid actually used toilet paper to wipe his butt? Your butt is very expensive. Chapter 675. after dealing with old he for a while. Only then did Li Chengqian walk into the wooden house with a solemn expression. He looked at Zhang Feng, who was curled up on the recliner, and asked, "Fengzi, I just heard from old he that you're going to wipe your ass with toilet paper?" This time, it was a big deal. In an instant, Cheng Chumo and the others who were joking with Zhang Feng were shocked. "Damn, Fengzi, you're so awesome. Come, let's see if your eyes are made of gold." "Get lost." Zhang Feng slapped Cheng Chumo's hand away and said, "What else can I use if not paper? But I forgot to buy some when I went up the mountain this time. I usually use rice paper. Toilet paper is too easy to tear." Hearing this, Li Chengqian looked at Zhang Feng in disbelief and exclaimed, "You still use rice paper? Fengzi, you absolutely cannot mention this matter to anyone else. Otherwise, your academy will cease to exist." Hearing this, Zhang Feng was stunned. Looking at them with a solemn expression, he asked, "Isn't it just a toilet paper to wipe your ass? Do you have to go so far?" "Go so far? You actually said that? Come, let me calculate for you. This toilet paper costs 500 coins, and no one needs to buy a fixed amount every year. This rice paper is even more different. It costs 1,000 strings of coins. Even the current emperor only uses a little when he writes the imperial edict. You actually use such a precious thing to wipe your ass?" Li Chengqian was crazy. He must think that Zhang Feng was really crazy. If those scholars were to find out that Zhang Feng actually treated the rice paper that they were reluctant to use like this, how would they fly into a rage? But Zhang Feng was also stunned. He was anxious. "Isn't it just a piece of paper? Do you have to go so far? You still say that the academy is closed? Okay, tomorrow Lao Tzu will make you paper of a higher grade than rice paper. Isn't it just a piece of paper? As for 1,000 strings of coins? Believe it or not, if I'm willing, I can get you 300 caddies in one day. Do you believe it or not?" Old man doesn't believe it. At this moment, Li Yuan's voice faintly sounded from outside the door. Although it was already the Chou hour at this time, these guys' voices were too loud. In addition, the environment had just changed, and there were many mosquitoes. How could Li Yuan sleep? At this time, with such a ruckus, Li Yuan heard everything. When he heard that Zhang Feng actually wanted to make paper, and it was the kind of paper that was better than rice paper, he finally couldn't sit still. Even he didn't dare to say this sentence. After all, rice paper was something the world was proud of. It was also the secret method of the Tang dynasty. But in Zhang Feng's hands, it was reduced to a tool to wipe his ass? How could this not make Li Yuan angry? However, he was also looking forward to it. When Zhang Feng saw the old man come out, he couldn't help but have a headache. "Old man, it's the middle of the night. Why don't you sleep and come out? With your voices so loud, do you think old man can sleep?" Zhang Feng was speechless. "However, were you bragging just now, or are you really planning to make paper?" Zhang Feng pointed to his pale face and said with a wry smile, "Look at my face. Do you think I'm joking?" When Li Yuan heard this, he couldn't help but put away the joking expression on his face and said seriously, "Then what are you going to do?" Zhang Feng was not stupid. He glanced at Li Yuan and said, "It's a secret. It can't be spread." When Li Yuan heard this, he was so angry that he almost wanted to beat him, but he still resisted and asked, "Then tell me, this paper, how long will it take you to make it? And how much do you plan to sell it for?" At this time, after a bowl of dark cuisine, Zhang Feng finally raised his spirits and said, "If we don't count the preparation time, the first time, it will take 2 days. The second time will do. It only needs 1 day. You can guarantee 300 caddies every day?" Li Yuan suddenly stood up and asked. Zhang Feng was stunned. This is the worst-case scenario. Under normal circumstances, it will be more than 500 caddies. This is not considered expanding the scale. Otherwise, a few thousand caddies a day is not a problem. Hiss. When Li Yuan heard this, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Now, everyone was using their book collection to compete with their master's profound knowledge, and what they were competing with was nothing else but their book collection. And books were expensive. What was expensive about them? It was expensive in this paper. A book, just a casual binding, would need to consume 3 taels of rice paper. 1 tael of rice paper was 1,000 coins. This book was 3,000 strings of coins. The reason why paper was so expensive was not because of anything else, but because this manufacturing process was too troublesome. If a paper mill could produce 100 caddies a month, that was already a high yield. But what did Li Yuan just hear? He actually heard it. 300 caddies a day. And this was the worst-case scenario. If it was good, a few thousand caddies a day. What did this mean? This was a windfall. Li Yuan couldn't help but ask, how do you plan to sell this paper? How could Zhang Feng not know that this matter was serious at this time? He inadvertently fiddled with another thing that could make him rich overnight. How would he know that paper in the Tang dynasty would be so scarce? If that was the case, then what was he doing earlier? If he had made paper earlier, then wouldn't he have made a fortune? Chapter 676. Zhang Feng's stomach finally turned for the better after Sun Simiao helped him with a smile on his face. 2 days later, Zhang Feng spent most of the time in bed. That feeling, it was simply unbearable. The price Zhang Feng paid was 10 jars of white wine and 3 braised pig trotters a day. These were not important, the key was the wine. It was inconvenient for him to move now, and coupled with the shortage of food, he could not get any food to make wine. When he thought of the 10 jars of wine, Zhang Feng's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. But there was no other way. Zhang Feng secretly called old He and Zhuzi's father to come to the bed and said with a sobbing tone, "Old He, Zhuzi's father, now I can only rely on the 2 of you. You also saw those people, they are all King ungrateful wolves." When the 2 heard this, they turned pale with fright and hurriedly asked, "Feng Zi, what happened to you? If the problem is big, we will carry you down the mountain and let the godly doctor take a look at you. If it doesn't work, we will find a Daoist priest to exorcise you. You must not scare us." Old He and Zhuzi's father were so anxious that they almost cried. They thought that Zhang Feng was making arrangements for his death. Zhang Feng also understood the meaning of the 2, but he did not say much. He just took a breath and said with a pale face, "I have a letter here, I will have to trouble the 2 of you to pass it to this old man. This matter is too big, please do not tell those ungrateful people." The 2 of them wiped their tears and sobbed, "Feng Zi, don't worry. Although we can't pluck the stars for you, you don't have to worry about this small matter of delivering a letter. Why don't we break into the imperial palace right now and bring the imperial physician up to the mountain for you?" While speaking, the 2 picked up the spatula and kitchen knife in their hands and were about to run down the mountain. Zhang Feng was so scared that he hurriedly pulled them back. "I'm fine. It's just diarrhea, isn't it? Just do as I say. Also, while they're not paying attention, I've hidden 10 bags of food in the courtyard behind the tavern. Give them to the old elementary scholar. Remember, don't tell anyone about this." After the 2 confirmed that Zhang Feng was not going to die, they sniffled and hurriedly ran away. There was no other way. Zhang Feng was also the best at using this kind of fake but not real method. Otherwise, the people of this era were too straightforward. Plus, the people of Guangzhong did not like to lie. Zhang Feng could only secretly shout in his heart that he had sinned while secretly ordering people to brew wine. There was no other way, he could not leave this thing alone. There were wolves all around him, he had to find a safe way. After thinking for 3 days, he could only lock his gaze on the old elementary scholar. In addition, he pretended that he was about to die to fool the 2 of them. Now, even if the heavenly emperor wanted to pry something out of their mouths, it would be useless. Zhang Feng laughed mischievously. He crossed his legs, hugged his head, and closed his eyes once again. And this act of Zhang Feng's instantly stirred up big trouble. First of all, when the 2 walked out of Zhang Feng's house and saw the people everywhere and the embryonic form of White Deer College, how could the 2 hold back? They sat down beside the old neighbors of Tonghui Lane and started bawling. Everyone was stunned. When they thought about how the 2 of them were fine when they entered Zhang Feng's room, and how they suddenly started crying, they almost scared the hell out of everyone. The old village chief used his walking stick to hit the 2 of them on the back and shouted, "Feng Zi, what's wrong? Why don't you 2 tell me?" Everyone's hearts couldn't help but thump when they saw the 2 of them. After sniffling twice, Old He was about to say something, but the old village chief waved his hand and glared at the people beside him. He shouted, "Do you have nothing to do? Do you not want to eat any more? This is a family matter in Tonghui Lane. Why are you interfering? Get the hell out of here." When everyone heard this, they were even more certain that something had happened. But at this time, under the command of the old village chief, everyone carried the two people who were crying until their arms and legs were weak into the temporary kitchen. Everyone surrounded the two people in a circle, and then there were a few strong men who specially raised their sticks, angrily staring at anyone who dared to take a step forward. This included Du Go, who was rubbing his head and walking forward. At this moment, in the middle of the crowd, Old He said, "Just now, Feng Zi asked us to go in." Then, the two of them spoke one after another and finally explained everything clearly. Instantly, the old women and young women in Tonghui Lane started crying. The old village chief shouted angrily, "Are you crying at a funeral? All of you were shut up by Lao Tzu. If anyone dares to spread this news, Lao Tzu will break their legs if they dare to King enter Tonghui Lane in the future." You saw it too. This is all because of this group of Curs who came to harm Feng Zi. What a good kid. If it wasn't for him, would Tonghui Lane have such good days today? He's such a good kid. Ayaya, from today onwards, I will take care of Feng Zi's daily needs. Don't spread this news. Let those ingrates know that no one in Tonghui Lane is easy to mess with. If anyone dares to ask Feng Zi for anything, Lao Tzu will bite off a piece of their flesh. Feng Zi should be fine for now. Wait for this old man to personally go and ask the godly doctor. In front of the godly doctor, I will take a closer look. Otherwise, this old man will feel uneasy. Chapter 677. In fact, although every city square had a supervisor, this position actually meant that the supervisor and the village chief were both in the same position. In the beginning, they called him the old village chief. If it was necessary, they would not call him supervisor. The old village chief's words were like an imperial edict to the people of Tonghui Square. Moreover, Feng Zi's situation was unclear. However, Old He and Old Man Chiu would never lie. Now, everyone thought that Feng Zi's stomach suddenly hurt in the middle of the night 3 days ago. Everyone could not help but think that Feng Zi was about to die. Now, everyone looked at Du Go and the others with a different expression. In the past, when they saw it, it was because of Feng Zi's face and the prestige of the 4 demon kings that everyone treated it as a big deal. But now, Feng Zi was about to die because of them. How could they still treat her well? Even the students were the same. If not for them, would Feng Zi come to the Cultivation Academy on the mountain? This was because she was tired out. At this moment, Du Go was stunned. Originally, he was looking for Old He and Old Man Chiu to reconcile the accounts. However, when he saw Old He and Old Man Chiu sobbing and looking at Feng Zi's room from time to time, he was completely stunned. Old He, you guys, get lost. If you dare to call Lao Tzu that again, do you believe that Lao Tzu will break your bones? Du Go could only say that he was scared silly. He watched as Old He and Old Man Chiu rushed down the mountain with murderous intent. He was even more stunned. However, when he turned around and saw the red-eyed and unfriendly neighbors of Tonghui Square at the entrance of the kitchen, Du Go could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. Bad guy. Beat him up. At this moment, Steamed Bun came out from behind the crowd with a handful of stove ashes in his hand and threw them at Du Go. In the next moment, how could the crowd hold back? They rushed up and beat Du Go. Du Go was stunned. He was also furious. Who was he? He was the young duke. At this moment, he was beaten up for no reason. Even Steamed Bun, who was known for his cuteness, scratched his face and left a bloody mark. This made Du Go explode with anger. Limping and hopping, he didn't even care about his clothes, which he usually cared about the most. He lifted his robe and ran. Just you wait. You're going against the heavens. You actually dare to... Who the hell threw the stone? *CK. Beat him up. It's all his fault. If he hadn't been following behind Feng Zi and chanting scriptures all day long, Feng Zi wouldn't have ended up like this. Sob, 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 it's all your fault. I noticed you before. Once you came up the mountain, You were always so nosy. You followed Fengzi to eat and go to the toilet to annoy him. If it weren't for you, Fengzi wouldn't be like this. Beat him up. Dugo was completely confused. But at this moment, how could he dare to explain? With great difficulty, he squeezed out of the crowd and scrambled to the back of the mountain. At this moment, when the crowd at the mountain gate saw the people from Tong Hui Fang, they all shuddered and took a detour. He was afraid that these red-eyed fellows would grab him and beat him up for no reason. They knew that these people were from Tong Hui Fang and were well taken care of by the dean. If they were beaten up, they wouldn't even have a place to reason. Didn't they see that even young Master Du, who called the dean his brother, was beaten up? As for Dugo, the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. His hair cap had long been thrown away and his hair was disheveled. His face was covered in soot and black mud. His face was bruised and one of his legs was crippled by some bastard. From afar, he saw Li Chengqian and the others lazing around on a rock. Dugo felt wronged and shouted, "Why are you still standing here? Lao Tzu was beaten up by someone. Go help Lao Tzu." When Li Chengqian and the others heard this, they were stunned. But when they saw Dugo's current appearance, their eyeballs couldn't help but fall out. Li Chengqian rubbed his eyes and nudged Zhang Sun in disbelief. He asked, "Who is this? Why does his voice sound so much like De Bing?" Zhang Sun was also stunned. He scratched his head and said, "It seems like this guy is really De Bing. Look at his belt. It's the only one in Chang'an." When everyone heard this, they hurriedly looked at the inlaid blue jade belt hanging on Dugo's waist. It was about to fall off. "De Bing, what are you doing? F***ck, who is so daring to beat you up? Is there still justice? Is there still law? We, the 4 great demon kings, dare to beat us? Who has eaten the guts of a leopard?" Dugo was also furious. As he rushed towards Dugo, Chengchumo and the others rolled up their sleeves, wanting to avenge him. The 4 great demon kings didn't show their might. Did they really think that they were sick cats? How preposterous! But Dugo's next words made the 4 of them dumbfounded. Dugo didn't wait for them to remember him. He pointed in the direction of the mountain gate and shouted, "Those lowly commoners in Tong Hui Fang are crazy. Everyone's eyes are red and they want to beat someone up. Look, the wound on my face was scratched by steamed bun. It was also led by steamed bun. If you are brothers, then go and chop them up." Chapter 678. Li Chengqian was dumbfounded. Chengchumo, who was rolling up his sleeves, almost stumbled and fell on his face. Strange. This matter was strange in every way. Logically speaking, the people in Tong Hui Fang were untouchable on this mountain. Because of Feng Zi, these people worked very hard. They even fought to do the dirty and tiring work on a daily basis. He was always polite and amiable to everyone. In their own words, they could not embarrass Feng Zi. But what was going on today? With great difficulty, the few of them helped Dugo to sit down on the large blue stone. Li Chengqian asked, "Tell me in detail what exactly happened? If there is even the slightest bit of concealment, you know me." This was the first time Li Chengqian used his identity as the crown prince on the mountain. It was also the first time he used his identity in front of these people. At this moment, everyone could smell that something was wrong. When Dugo heard this, his face also became serious. He explained the matter from beginning to end. When he said this, everyone could not help but be dumbfounded. If Dugo was not wrong, old he and Zhuzi's father were 2 honest people. Ever since Feng Zi called them into the room, this problem had happened? And the moment they left the room, they started bawling? There were only 2 things that could cause these 2 men to be in so much pain. One was that their family members were no longer around, and the other was Li Chengqian's face suddenly changed. He asked, "Which one of you saw Feng Zi this morning?" When Wei Shu heard this, she could not help but be shocked. "You mean, something happened to Feng Zi?" When Wei Shu said this, everyone's hearts could not help but thump. But at this moment, Zhang Sun stroked the fluffy beard on his chin and said, "It shouldn't be. In the morning I saw him come out to pee. Apart from being a little weak, there was nothing wrong with this kid. He ate and drank as he should. However, this was before midnight." When everyone heard this, They could not help but turn pale with fright. Fengzi had started to have diarrhea 3 days ago. It had been 3 days. Logically speaking, he should have recovered by now. But he did not get out of bed these 3 days. Could it be? The few of them could not help but look at each other in shock. Leaving Dugo behind, they ran towards the mountain gate. Combined with what Dugo had said, they suddenly thought of something bad. After all, now that the academy was so famous, it was inevitable that there would be people who coveted and hated Fengzi, including Guanlong, the 7 major clans, Shandong, and the Imperial College. When everyone thought about this matter, they couldn't help but panic. As they ran, Li Chengqian no longer bothered to conceal his identity. He waved his hand at the Jinwu guards who were disguised as servants and guards, and everyone rushed towards Zhang Feng's wooden house. If Zhang Feng turned out to be a vegetable, even if they weren't beheaded, the emperor would be furious. They couldn't bear this responsibility. In particular, although Feng Zi had a bad mouth as a brother, there was no need to say anything. When they thought of this, Cheng Chumo and the others couldn't help but emit a murderous aura. Li Chengqian was even more direct. He pointed at a guard and said, "Pass down the order. Lock down the entire Shao Mountain. No one is allowed to leave the mountain without orders. If anyone suspicious is found, they can be killed first and reported later." Understood. Also, find the old master immediately. Protect the old master well. Don't disturb the old master at all costs. Otherwise, you will be held accountable. The guard was shocked and hurriedly ran towards the mountain gate. As he ran, he whistled for an emergency assembly. In an instant, the entire Shao Mountain was in turmoil. Under the stunned gazes of the crowd, the servants and guards brought by young Master Li Chengqian instantly revealed pairs of soul-stirring eyes and stared coldly at the crowd. No one knew where they got their knives from. They stared coldly at the crowd as if they were looking for something in the crowd. At this moment, the people who were building the student dormitory at the foot of the mountain were also hurriedly called up. Everyone gathered at the mountain gate, trembling in fear. What's going on? Everything was fine. Why did it suddenly? Did something happen? I'm not sure. I heard that something happened to the dean. What? The whispers of the crowd instantly reached everyone's ears. It's over. I heard that the dean was killed by a traitor. Oh no, the dean was killed by a Turkic spy. The dean passed away on the spot and ascended. In an instant, such words spread across Shao Mountain like a spring breeze. At this moment, as he was explaining to Ma Zhou, Zheng Tufu, as well as Zheng Tufu and Zheng Tufu's son about castration, someone suddenly ran towards the mountain entrance from afar. As he ran, he shouted, oh no, I heard that the dean was eaten by a wild beast." Hearing this, Zheng Tufu and the others were stunned for a moment. After that, Zheng Tufu flew into a rage. He picked up a butcher's knife and shouted angrily, "Which bastard dared to kill Feng Zi? Kid, tell me clearly. Otherwise, Lao Tzu's butcher's knife will not be careless." Chapter 679. In the entire Shao Mountain, the only one who didn't know about this matter was none other than Li Yuan, who was currently watching his villa being built bit by bit under the waterfall. At this moment, the people he brought up also displayed their talents. In a short 3 days, they took materials from the ground beside this waterfall and built a wooden house. It was even the kind with 2 floors. Moreover, they used bamboo to form a fence around the house. He looked like a scholar who lived in seclusion here. At this moment, Li Yuan was sitting on a Western region leather blanket. While looking at the boiling tea on the small stove on the table, he used a palm leaf fan to lightly fan himself. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the construction site in the distance. But gradually, Li Yuan also discovered that something was wrong. At the beginning, there seemed to be hundreds of people at the construction site. However, following the arrival of a group of guards, the people here slowly decreased by a lot. Until now, there was not a single person at the construction site. Instead, those guards were increasing in number. Although Li Yuan didn't recognize these guards, from their orderly movements and standing posture, he could tell that these were the golden guards of the palace. In the entire mountain, other than the ones he brought himself, only Li Chengqian could bring out these guards. Li Yuan frowned and lightly hooked his finger. Standing behind him, the old eunuch who was like an old monk in meditation hurriedly bowed. Did something happen over there? Why is there not a single one of these people? This old servant doesn't know. Go investigate. Li Yuan was somewhat angry. Originally, he wanted to personally witness the house that belonged to him being built bit by bit. This was also an interesting thing. However, now, this sudden increase in golden guards made him smell something unusual. Not long after, the old eunuch still found out and hurried over. Without waiting for him to enter, the old eunuch hurriedly said, old master, something bad has happened. Something bad has happened. You sure know how to say old man. Zhang Feng, that brat, I heard something happened to that brat. He was assassinated by someone. Hearing this, Li Yuan's hand trembled. The tea stove on the table was instantly knocked over by him. What did you say? Li Yuan's voice was so cold that it scared people to death. It made everyone around him tremble and uniformly kneel on the ground. This old servant doesn't know. Bastard! Men, follow me to take a look. Pass down my order to the golden guards to seal off Shao Mountain. If anything happens to Feng Zi, all of you will be buried with him. Li Yuan was furious. After so many years, this was the first time he had met such an interesting kid. Moreover, this brat dared to throw a tantrum at him. He had long regarded Zhang Feng as his confidant, but he had just gone up the mountain and encountered such a thing, which made his heart suddenly ache. What is this? This was slapping his old face, Li Yuan. Once Li Yuan was enraged, it was bound to cause a world-shaking incident. However, at this time, he still didn't know Zhang Feng's specific situation. Therefore, Li Yuan could only treat him as an elder. He had several people carry the sliding pole and run wildly towards the mountain gate, where Zhang Feng's residence was located. However, when he arrived with his men, the place was already filled with a sea of people. Everyone in Tonghui Lane was currently holding knives and shovels in their hands, glaring angrily at everyone. Just like that, they guarded Zhang Feng's door and refused to budge an inch. Meanwhile, Li Chengqian and the rest were also confronting this old village chief. Old thing, are you going to budge or not? If you don't budge, do you believe that Lao Tzu will slaughter you? Cheng Chumo shouted in anger. He wanted to grab the old village chief, but before his hand could grab the old village chief, Zheng Tufu's huge butcher's knife had already chopped down on his hand. According to this momentum, as long as Cheng Chumo's hand grabbed the old village chief, his hand would also be gone. Under the horrified gaze of the crowd, Cheng Chumo hurriedly retracted his hand and glared at Zheng Tufu. Zheng Tufu's black tower-like body slowly moved in front of the old village chief. Behind him was his son. Although he was not taller than him, his bulging muscles still made Cheng Chumo's eyelids twitch. Behind the two of them, Ma Zhou's hands were also trembling as he pointed at the few people. This made Cheng Chumo instantly feel a chill in his crotch. He hurriedly took 3 steps back and glared angrily at Zheng Tu. He said, "Rebel, rebel. Are you all trying to rebel? Rebel? I've long heard that the 4 great demon kings are rude and unreasonable. It's true. Dear villagers, have you all seen this? These people are the stubborn people of Chang'an city. They are known as the 4 great demon kings of Chang. Although they were influenced by your dean and came to the academy, you all have seen that they have been angering the dean all day long. That's why the dean suffered such a great calamity. Tell me, are they speaking human language now? No. Beast, you are simply worse than beasts. The dean is such a good person. Why did he befriend such heartless and unscrupulous brothers like you? It's all thanks to the dean treating you so well. Now you're saying that we're rebelling? Good. Good. We more than 5,000 people on Shao Mountain, how about rebelling for the dean today? Just when Li Chengqian and the others were unable to resist, Li Yuan's dignified and cold voice that made people tremble all over rang out behind the crowd. If you dare to rebel, come, kill all of you for the old man. Leave no one alive. Chapter 680. Li Yuan's voice was still rather intimidating. Under this cold shout, the clamor of the entire Shao Mountain was suppressed in an instant. Everyone turned around to look, only to see Li Yuan slowly walking down the pole, and those servants behind him had already flashed their shining white knives. Li Chengqian was shocked, urging everyone to open up a path, saying, "Everyone, calm down a bit. I know you are all Feng Zi's good neighbors, but right now no one knows Feng Zi's situation. He is your good neighbor, but he is also our good brother. You are anxious, but I am even more anxious. If something happens to Feng Zi, what are you all blocking here for? That will only delay the time to save Feng Zi, and also the time to track down the culprit. If you all continue to delay like this, perhaps that thief would have already escaped by now." When everyone heard this, they all turned to look at the old village chief. The old village chief also had some misgivings. But looking at those servants behind Li Yuan who were eyeing covetously, only then did he clench his teeth and point at Li Yuan. "I am not at ease with these bastards. You go in. Also, you go in together with Dr. Sun. No one else is allowed to enter. Cheng Tufu, you come with me and follow them in." After finishing his instructions, Li Yuan glanced at Sun Simiao who was standing behind the crowd, pinching his fingers and frowning for a while. "Old Sun, the two of us make a trip. Before I come out, if anyone dares to leave, kill without mercy." Grandson obeys. Soon after, the four people slowly pushed open the door to Zhang Feng's room, and everyone's gaze uniformly looked towards that door. When the few people entered, the first thing they heard was a rhythmic snoring sound. Everyone was stunned. Li Yuan coldly glanced at the somewhat stupefied old village chief and Jing Tufu, only then did he flick his robe and lift Zhang Feng's mosquito net. He pursed his lips toward Sun Simiao. Sun Simiao hurriedly grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and checked his pulse. But after a few breaths, Sun Simiao's face was filled with a strange expression. Shaking off Zhang Feng's hand, a slap landed on Zhang Feng's white, but that was exposed outside the blanket. At this moment, the old village chief's soul was about to leave his body. Butcher Zheng almost lost his grip on the pig-slaughtering knife in his hand. If he wasn't an idiot, he would be able to tell that this kid was dreaming. Zhang Feng was already in a sweet dream. At this time, he was suddenly touched by a pervert. He instantly woke up and sat up. When he saw the four angry people in front of him, Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. "Old master, godly doctor, old village chief, Jing Tufu, since when did you all have the bad habit of peeping on people sleeping? Shut up, old man." Old man is furious. Dr. Sun glared fiercely at Zhang Feng. Then, with a wave of his sleeve, he stormed off. This time, Zhang Feng was even more dumbfounded. "Old master, what's going on? What's wrong? You still have the nerve to ask me what's wrong? Why don't you ask this old thing what's wrong?" Li Yuan was furious. He glared at the old village chief and roared. He almost shouted at the people outside to chop the old village chief into pieces. Zhang Feng scratched his head full of question marks and asked, "Old village chief, what's going on?" The old village chief took a deep breath and glared at Zhang Feng. He asked, "Feng Zi, I ask you, tell me honestly, how many is this?" While speaking, the old village chief stretched out 3 fingers. Zhang Feng was speechless. "Isn't this 2? What's going on? Hurry up and tell me." When the old village chief heard this, he sat on the ground and cried, "You little bastard, do you know that you almost killed everyone in Tong Hui Fong?" Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He hurriedly stood up and asked, "Old village chief, get up first. Tell me what's going on." "What's going on? Let me ask you, what did you say to old he and the others just now? I watched them grow up and never lie. When they left your house, they wailed and cried, saying that you're about to die. Now give me an explanation, what's going on?" Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. However, after looking around, he looked at Jing Tufu. To be precise, he looked at the pig-slaughtering knife that was trembling so much that it looked like it would fall at any moment. He asked, "Old Jing, tell me what's going on?" I don't know. I was learning about castration from old Gao. Suddenly, someone said that you were harmed by a villain. That's why I came here with the pig-slaughtering knife. Kid, if you don't give me an explanation today, old man will beat you up as soon as you leave the house. If you're willing to beg me, old man might protect you from death." Li Yuan saw that Zhang Feng was fine, but he could not swallow the anger in his heart. He said fiercely. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. which could be considered an answer to Li Yuan. After inquiring about the situation outside again, the old village chief asked with a face full of worry, "Kid, what did you do? The whole mountain knows that you've been harmed. If it wasn't for this old man rushing over, you might have been bleeding." The more Zhang Feng listened, the more his expression changed. In the end, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "I'm innocent. I'm innocent." Chapter 681. Compared to the people inside the room, the people outside were even more worried. Seeing godly doctor's son Xiamiao walk out with a gloomy face, everyone immediately surrounded him. "Godly doctor, what's going on inside? How's Feng? What happened? Does it?" Facing everyone's questions, son Xiamiao didn't say a word. He only said coldly, "Get out of the way." Li Chengqian couldn't sit still anymore. Seeing son Xiamiao's attitude, he hurriedly went forward and asked, "Godly doctor's son, what's going on inside? How's Feng?" If it was someone else, son Xiamiao would be disdainful. However, facing the crown prince, he still spoke politely and coldly spat out 2 words. "It's fine." Then he walked away angrily. When Li Chengqian heard that, he was completely dumbfounded. "It's fine? What did that mean? How was it fine?" Looking at his frosty face, it was obvious that something big had happened. Whether it was Li Chengqian, the people in Tonghui Square, or the onlookers, their hearts instantly turned cold. "It's over. It's all over. The dean is gone." Even the crowd couldn't help but cry. Li Chengqian was extremely annoyed. He waved his hand and wanted to vent his anger. However, when he saw the crowd, he didn't want to anger them. He could only wave his hand and say, "Tai Niu, guard outside. Don't let anyone in. You guys follow me in to take a look." As he spoke, Li Chengqian hurriedly brought Du Go, whose face was red and swollen, Zhang Sun, and Wei Shuyu into Zhang Feng's room. At this moment, the 4 of them had already imagined how Zhang Feng would look like. However, when they opened the door curtain, their eyeballs almost fell out. They saw Zhang Feng talking cheerfully with Li Yuan about something, while the old village chief and Zheng Tufu stood at the side with a strange expression. Seeing this situation, as long as one's head wasn't clamped by the door, one would know that Zhang Feng was fine. Du Go exploded in anger. Looking at Zhang Feng on the bed, he didn't care about the retired emperor beside him and shouted angrily, "Zhang Feng, you little brat, die." As he spoke, he directly pounced on him. And this angry shout was heard by the people outside and inside the room. Zhang Feng was stunned. Li Yuan was also stunned. However, Li Yuan, who was a shrewd person, only looked at Zhang Feng with a smile. He stepped aside and let them toss about. Bang! A punch landed on Zhang Feng's face right in front of his eyes. In the next moment, Zhang Feng let out a scream that sounded like a pig being slaughtered. "Murder! Do to Bing! Does anyone care? Yours? Fuck you! Get out! Idiot Wei, don't F asterisk king pull my hair. Fight me one-on-one if you dare." Wu Li Yuan smilingly waved his hand at Zheng Tufu and the old village chief, whose faces were filled with confusion. The 3 of them slowly left the room and let go of Cheng Chumo, who had charged in. Only then did they sigh. "Sir, just now it was me. I hope you won't lower yourself to the same level as us commoners." The moment the old village chief went out, he bowed to Li Yuan in front of everyone's shocked eyes. Li Yuan waved his hand and sighed, "This is all caused by this bastard. You guys also saw it. This brat is a tortoise, a scourge. Are you relieved now?" "Relax, relax." What could the old village chief say? He hurriedly bowed and sent Li Yuan away. Following Li Yuan's departure, there were also the Jinwu guards disguised as guards, as well as Gan Ziyuan and the others. Only at this moment did the old village chief sigh angrily and said, "Everyone disperse. You all heard that bastard's voice just now. You're living better than anyone else. Just now was a misunderstanding. Everyone go and work. When you're free, I'll let that brat give you an explanation." When everyone heard this, they repeatedly said that they didn't dare to accept it. Only then did they slowly leave. Listening to the waves of pig-like screams in the room, who would dare to let Zhang Feng give them an explanation? If this brat did something bad and vented his anger on them, then the ones who would suffer would be them. although the people had dispersed. But this matter still became a joke at the Xingshan construction site. The matter of the dean being a tortoise also became Zhang Feng's label at this moment. It was just that at this moment, their dean was currently in a life and death contest in the room. The few of them only stopped panting after fighting for a quarter of an hour. To put it bluntly, they were pitying Zhang Feng. This brat had just walked out from the state of being jerked. At this moment, he was beaten up by the few of them. Now, he was paralyzed on the bed, like a soft noodle, constantly sticking out his tongue. Du Go and the others were not in a good state either. Although Zhang Feng could not beat them, his fingernails were long, and he scratched them in handfuls. Everyone's hair was disheveled now, and the streaks of blood on their faces were quite visually shocking. Tell me, Lao Tzu is sleeping well, and he's still a patient. Who did Lao Tzu offend? Zhang Feng cried. Du Go snorted twice, pointed at his own face and roared, "Damn, you still feel wronged? It's all your fault, you bastard. Look at me being beaten up. Look at this, it's that girl's steamed bun who pinched it for me. Tell me, how should I compensate?" Chapter 682. Zhang Feng glared at Du Go's face. Who knows what kind of shady business you did to get caught by steamed bun? You're the most reserved one here. Who knows, you might have gone to take liberties with that innocent woman and got caught by the village chief and the others. Now, you're complaining? Du Go was about to vomit blood. His eyes turned red and he was about to pounce again. Zhang Feng hurriedly shouted for him to stop. He asked, "You can't blame me for this. If you want to blame someone, blame it on the few of you. You always bully me when you have nothing to do. Do you see it now? Even our neighbors can't stand it anymore. Hit me again. Just wait for strange things to appear in your rice bowl from time to time." Du Go stopped moving when he heard that. He just sat on the edge of the bed and groaned. Li Chengqian tidied his clothes and asked, "What happened just now? What did you say to old he and the others? I still remember them. They don't seem like liars. You must be up to no good, right?" Zhang Feng glared. "When did Lao Tzu do anything bad? I'm still a patient, okay? I'm just making them." At this point, Zhang Feng stopped abruptly. He would rather die than say anything else. Li Chengqian and the others looked at each other and then clenched their fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Zhang Feng was so scared that he hurriedly said, "Well, we just want them to do something and give you a surprise when the time comes." Seeing Zhang Feng being so honest, they took the opportunity to ask, "What did you make them do?" "Go, scram, I don't know. I won't know even if I'm beaten to death." Zhang Feng was also annoyed. His wine was about to be finished by these people. The wine was still very useful. After all, if he wanted to pull those gods up the mountain, the wine was essential. Furthermore, that old man and divine doctor's son Simiao had an incredible tolerance for alcohol. Zhang Feng's heart ached as he watched the wine dwindle bit by bit every day. Seeing that they were unwilling to give up, Zhang Feng had no choice but to tell them the truth. When they heard that, they couldn't help but be stunned. "Just because of this, you still need to hide it from us? Do you still treat us as brothers?" Cheng Chumo gritted his teeth and roared, "If you want to brew wine, you should have said so. Although we don't have much food, we can steal a little from home. It should be enough for you to brew, right? Do you have to hide it from us?" F***CK, this brat is blaming us for drinking his wine. Forget it, we'll pay back the money for the wine tomorrow. We're not brothers anymore. Zhang Feng was completely dumbfounded by the roars of these people. "I say, is what you're saying true? For those who have a good relationship, I'll give each of you 10,000 taels of gold." Their expressions froze. 10,000 taels? Why don't you just King rob someone? Ahem, I still have something to do. I'm going to patrol the mountains. Wei Shuyu coughed and hurried away. Then Cheng Chumo searched his body and roared, F***CK, who took Lao Tzu's account book? Then, Li Chengqian also left. Only Du Go and Zhang Feng were left looking at each other. Forget it, I'm leaving too." When it was Du Go's turn, he had nothing to say. He could only obediently run out. Zhang Feng was speechless. Was it necessary? Wasn't it just 10,000 taels of gold? How could he be so stingy? F***ck Zhang Feng had no desire to sleep at this time. After being beaten up for no reason, if he was in the mood to sleep, it could only be said that he had a big heart. At this time, fortunately, his stomach was also much better. He got up and looked at himself in the bronze mirror. Although there was something wrong with his face, at least he could see people. However, the matter on the mountain was solved, but at this time, something big had happened in Chang'an University. When Uncle He and Li Chengqian came to the old scholar with red and swollen eyes, the old scholar knew that something had happened. Something big had happened. He hurriedly sent someone to call Jingshu into the study and let Uncle He and Li Chengqian explain the matter in front of Jingshu. How could they explain it clearly? They just kept sighing and wiping their tears. By the way, Jingshu's face suddenly changed and her whole body trembled. Although she was wearing a veil, the tears at the corner of her eyes had already wet the veil. After the two finished talking, Jingshu suddenly stood up and quietly returned to her room. Then, she picked up a pair of scissors and walked out of the Chang'an Academy under the shocked eyes of all the stubborn students of Chang'an University. Li Gang naturally saw this scene. He kicked Wang Lin and Li Chengqian's buttocks and shouted, "Follow the old man. If anyone dares to touch a hair of hers, the old man will tear down his house." Hearing this, the two hurriedly followed. Li Gang was worried and pointed at Fang Yai. Fang Yai also hurriedly followed. At this time, Li Gang hurriedly went into the old scholar's study and asked, "Brother Zihuai, what's going on?" The old scholar looked at Li Gang and pointed at Uncle He and Li Chengqian. "Fengzi, it seems that something has happened." Hearing this, Li Gang's face suddenly changed. He didn't care about anything else and waved his hand. Let's go to Shao Mountain. Chapter 683. Zhang Mansion. Isin Pastry Shop. At this time, the sun was setting. Zhang Shan was humming a tune and fiddling with the beads on his abacus. He looked at the beggars at the door fighting for the crumbs of pastries handed out by the servant. He sighed and said, "Are there any pastries left? Give them some." The servant pouted unhappily and said, "Master, aren't you too much? These kids have been squatting here all day, waiting for you to give them a bite to eat. Besides, my family has been eyeing these pastries for a long time. If you are kind, give me a few pieces." Zhang Shan laughed and scolded, "You only know how to eat. Don't think I don't know that your whole family has gone to the son-in-law's academy to eat and drink. Do you still care about this? If you want, you can take some back tomorrow when there are fewer beggars here." The servant pouted. He snorted in his heart, "A family of good people. It's not easy to find a son-in-law. Why is he also a good person? No, he is a fool. 20,000 dawn of grain is given to those poor beggars so easily." He had forgotten that at this time, if his whole family had not gone to Shao Mountain, they would have taken their bowls and begged for food. The servant took out a small dustpan from the back room. There were some pastries in it. When Zhang Shan was not paying attention, the servant put a piece into his embroidered robe. Then, he reluctantly threw the pastries in the dustpan to a group of beggars. At this time, a beggar looked at Zhang Shan and said, "Philanthropist Zhang, I just saw the young lady who often comes to see the young lady." Zhang Shan said, "Oh," without raising his head. The beggar said while eating the pastries, "She was holding a pair of scissors." A large group of people followed behind her. The young lady was crying. Hearing this, Zhang Shan finally put down the brush and abacus in his hand and asked, "Is what you said true?" Before he finished speaking, his eyes instantly swept over old He and Zhu Zi's father who were not far away from the shop. They were walking towards him listlessly. When Zhang Shan saw them, his heart skipped a beat. He rushed out of the shop and asked, "You too, did you come from abandoned mountain?" Seeing Zhang Shan, old He and old He's faces turned bitter. They told Zhang Shan about Zhang Feng's situation. Hearing this, Zhang Shan's face suddenly changed. He shouted at the snack shop, "Wazi, call people. Take the weapons and follow master to Shao Mountain." The servant named Wazi was shocked by Zhang Shan's angry shout. He had been doing odd jobs in the dessert shop for 3 years. Master Zhang was always smiling. When had he ever seen him so angry? In an instant, Wazi did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly entered the house from the back door. As soon as he entered, he shouted, "Everyone, come out." When the old butler heard this, he walked out of the accounting room and cursed, "You uncultured thing. Is this a place where you can bark?" Something happened to Master Butler. Master asked everyone in the family to bring their weapons to Shao Mountain. The butler was shocked when he heard this and hurriedly ran out of the house. When he saw Zhang Shan's expression, he instantly became anxious. "Someone come. Men in the family, as long as you can still walk, come out for old man. Take the weapons. Someone come. Are you all dead?" The old butler's loud shout instantly alarmed Madame Zhang and Yuyao. The two women hurriedly sent a maid to ask. Something happened. Something happened to Shao Mountain. Master is now running away with two crying faces from the Shao Mountain son-in-law's academy. Hearing this, Zhang Yuyao almost fainted. "Shao Cui, quickly prepare the carriage. Go to Shao Mountain." For a moment, from Chang'an University to Tao Tong Hui Fong, and then to the depths of the palace, there were rumors everywhere. Li Shimin, who was discussing matters with Du Ruhui and the others, was suddenly interrupted by Xiao Gizi, who suddenly broke in. Xiao Gizi did not have time to explain and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I just received news in Chang, and that something happened to Shao Mountain. It seems that Zhang Feng is dying." "Now, the people who came down from the abandoned mountain?" "What did you say? Say it one more time." When Li Shimin heard that, his expression suddenly changed greatly. Xiao Gizi was shocked and hurriedly repeated, "Just now, the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Mr. Li Gang, sent news from Chang'an University that something happened to Zhang Feng. At this time, he has already gone to Shao Mountain." Li Shimin heard this and fell on the dragon throne. He asked in a trembling voice, "Then, has there been any news from the Crown Prince and the Jinwu guards?" Xiao Gizi thought for a moment and said, "There hasn't been any news." Hearing this, Li Shimin's anxious heart could not help but relax a little. As long as there was no news from the Crown Prince and the Jinwu guards, it would be fine. He waved his hand and said, "Quickly send someone to ask what happened." Report from Shao Mountain. At this time, a scout hurriedly entered the imperial study. Li Shimin and the others heard this and all stood up with a bang, looking at the person who came in with shock. The scout hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, Shao Mountain, speak." Li Shimin waved his hand and said in a cold voice. The scout trembled all over. He hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, there is news from Shao Mountain. They are fine." Li Shimin and the others could not help but exclaim in unison. "Are you sure?" Several people asked in unison again. The scout's face that was covered in cold sweat trembled. He hurriedly said, "This is news from the retired emperor's personal eunuch." Chapter 684. Li Shimin was speechless. He asked, "What's the situation in Chang'an City?" Hearing this, Xiao Gizi said, "Your Majesty, Jing Shu took the scissors with tears of blood in her eyes and went to Shao Mountain like a puppet. Zhang Mansion also hurriedly took all the servants and followed closely with sticks. The people of Chang'an University were basically all dispatched. Now, basically everyone in Chang'an City knows about what happened in Shao Mountain. The remaining people of Tonghui Square, the veterans of Annal Square, and the people who have interacted with Zhang Feng all rushed out of the city at this time." Li Shimin asked again, "Send someone to check the Imperial College and those literati. These literati are not peaceful recently." While speaking, Li Shimin waved his hand and sent everyone away. Then he frowned and asked, "My dear ministers, what do you think of this matter?" Cheng Chumo and the others pulled their beards and looked at each other, dumbfounded. "Your Majesty, this guy always does not play by the rules. This time, I don't know what this guy is doing." Zhang Sun Wuji thought for a while and finally sighed. Li Shimin heard this and said, "Alas, let's not talk about him first. The main thing is that nothing happened. But recently, Tianzhu has become restless. We still have to strengthen the deployment at the border. Also, around Shao Mountain, Lao He, go to the barracks outside the city and directly mobilize the barracks between Chang'an and Shao Mountain. If something happens, I will know immediately." At the same time, On Shao Mountain, Zhang Feng was listening to the interrogation of the 3 guilds at this time. If Steamed Bun had not brought a small stool for him, he might have been standing there at this time. In the small living room in front of him, Li Yuan, Sun Simiao, Lao Gao, and the old village chief were sitting on pins and needles. Li Chengqian, Cheng Chumo, and the other bastards were drinking Zhang Feng's tea and criticizing him while chatting with each other. Zhang Feng was very depressed. However, he also knew that this matter seemed to be serious. After 3 bowls of tea, Li Yuan spat out a tea leaf on his lips. Only then did he glance indifferently at Zhang Feng and said, "Do you know your mistake?" Zhang Feng was speechless. Was he really treating him like a criminal? What did you do wrong? Seeing Zhang Feng stiffen his neck, Li Yuan was both annoyed and amused as he said, "You brat, do you know how big of a reaction this mess of yours will cause? Do you know that if Old Man had appeared a little later, Chen Tiniu's arm would have been reimbursed by Zheng Tufu? How are you going to explain it to his father?" This, Zhang Feng was speechless. He felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly asked Cheng Chumo in a low voice. Cheng Chumo snorted twice, which meant that he admitted it. This time, Zhang Feng finally realized that the matter was serious, but he also felt wronged. He said, "This brat also feels wronged. Look at you guys, you want to eat every day when you open your mouth. Moreover, you guys don't eat what old he and the rest make, but insist on eating what I make. I've been having diarrhea recently. I've been having diarrhea until I'm about to be crippled, and you guys won't let me go? You even took the opportunity to extort 10 jars of wine from me? Cuff cuff, brat, when did Old Man extort you? If you continue to talk nonsense like this, Old Man will go down the mountain right now and tell the people at the foot of the mountain that you, Zhang Feng, are a person who deceives the world to gain fame. The consultation fee promised to Old Man, in the end. All right, you're awesome. You're right. At that time, this brat was dizzy and said something wrong. Zhang Feng was terrified. He had no choice but to be terrified. As long as this brat said that, would he, Zhang Feng, still want his face? The fans that had just grown up with his own ability were completely smeared in an instant. That would be terrible. However, Zhang Feng was not terrified and said, "You guys have wronged me. You also know that since this brat went up to Shao Mountain, this wine is just a little bit. Old Man Li, you saw it. After all, it was your people who moved. Go and count how many jars of wine are left in the wine cellar. In this day, more than a dozen jars will be consumed. Sooner or later, it will be finished, right? Then after drinking, this brat has no more wine. Won't you have to say that this brat is not good again? So even if my legs are weak, lying in bed, I can't eat or sleep. I'm thinking, how can I make wine for you guys?" When Zhang Feng said this, Li Yuan's face could not help but stiffen slightly. However, he was a smart person after all. He coughed once and it was over. However, Sun Simiao was different. When Sun Simiao heard that Zhang Feng wanted to make wine, he could not help but sigh and said, "Since that's the case, you can come out and say it openly, right? Look at this matter. If you do this, the people on the mountain will think that Old Man Li and the rest bullied you. How can you let him live on the mountain in the future? After all, he's also the vice dean of White Deer College." Zhang Feng was speechless. "Old man's son, you've wronged this brat. You also saw my situation at that time. My face was pale and I was weak. I had no choice. I didn't want to lie in bed and say it. I just said to pass this thing to the old scholar. How could I know that they misunderstood? Then can't you say it normally?" Zhang Feng spread his hands. "What else can I say? I can't possibly jump and say it, right? Wouldn't that make me crazy?" Chapter 685. Just as they were arguing in the room, Wei Shuyu, who was patrolling, was dumbfounded. At this time, the sky had already darkened for a while. It was almost time for the evening. At this time, the people at the construction site had already hurried into their small shacks. Families were talking and laughing. There were even some people's shacks and tents. The sound of boiling water and the sound of children fighting over meat and bones could be heard from time to time. In this joyous and harmonious night, Wei Shuyu sounded the copper gong on the sentry post. Bang, bang, bang. Following the sound of the copper gong, the golden guards stationed on the mountain all appeared at various important places at the mountain gate. Li Chengqian and the others in the small wooden house also hurriedly walked out upon hearing this. "What's going on, big fool? Something happened at the foot of the mountain. Come up and see for yourselves." Wei Shuyu pointed at the foot of the mountain and said in a serious voice. Hearing this, they hurriedly climbed up the sentry post and looked down the mountain. On the winding road at the foot of the mountain, a group of about 100 people carrying torches was hurriedly rushing up the mountain. When they saw this, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Could it be that people from the city have come? At this time, this was the only situation. Otherwise, how could the people at the foot of the mountain not give out a warning? After all, after such a thing happened at the foot of the mountain this afternoon, there were basically patrols all day long. At this time, these people could actually go up the mountain. They were definitely from the palace. Could it be that Imperial Father had come? But after thinking about it, Li Chengqian also didn't think so. If Imperial Father had come, the lineup would definitely be much bigger than now. Moreover, if Imperial Father had come, he would definitely have notified beforehand. It couldn't be like this. Chongzi, quickly go down the mountain and see the situation. Then quickly go up the mountain and report the situation. Tainyo, go and inform the old master and the others. Just say that people have come from the foot of the mountain. They will naturally know. After Li Chengqian made some arrangements, he then quietly looked at the torches at the foot of the mountain, guessing who it was. Cheng Chumo jumped down the sentry post. As soon as he entered the room, he glanced at Li Yuan and said, "Grandfather Li, people have come from the foot of the mountain." Hearing this, Li Yuan's eyes flashed. If someone from the palace had come, then that child, Qingqian, would definitely have said that someone from his family had come. Then who had come now? But no matter who it was, the news must have spread. Li Yuan glared at Zhang Feng and said, "See, the mess is here now, right? Now, I'll give you some time to think about how to deal with those people. Old man can guarantee that your 2 wives will definitely come." Haha. While speaking, Li Yuan and Sun Simiao both laughed loudly, completely ignoring Zhang Feng, who had a dumbfounded expression. Zhang Feng was also anxious. He scampered outside and saw a few people looking down the mountain with their buttocks sticking out. He couldn't help but climb up the sentry post and stick his head out, sticking his butt out. Seeing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but think of this possibility. At the thought of the 2 crying girls going up the mountain, Zhang Feng's head started to hurt. "That Li Gan, you take care of it. My head suddenly hurts, I want to." Zhang Feng was just about to slip away, but how could Li Qingqian let him go? He and Du Go each held him down with one hand. Only then did they say with a smile that wasn't a smile, "You brat, you want to slip away after causing trouble? Just stay here obediently." Zhang Feng's face instantly turned bitter. He could only watch as the people at the foot of the mountain slowly approached the top. Not long after, Zhang Sun rushed back with a strange expression. He stared at Zhang Feng playfully and said, "Come down, my Lord Viscount. Your 2 wives are coming up with knives to denounce you." Hearing this, Zhang Feng's vision went black, and his head fell down. However, he hit the handrail on the side of the sentry post, making him even more dizzy. He simply sat down on the ground and sighed to the sky, "Motherf asterisk cur, what kind of people are these? They can't even do something well. I've met a bad person. However, no matter how much he struggled and yelled, it was useless. At this time, he had already rushed to the mountain gate. First, it was the old scholar, Zhang Shan, and old he. As soon as they entered the mountain gate, they grabbed Zhang Suin's collar and asked, "Brat, what did you do to Feng Zi? Where is Feng Zi?" Zhang Sunchong was completely dumbfounded by this. However, without waiting for him to speak, his body suddenly trembled, and he felt a piercing cold. He could only stand obediently, not daring to move at all. At this time, Jing Shu didn't waste any words. She looked coldly at Zhang Sun, a pair of scissors pressed against his neck, and asked coldly, "Where is my husband?" Zhang Sun was about to faint. At this time, the people on the sentry post opened their eyes wide, and their jaws were about to drop. At this time, they were stunned and couldn't say a word. Seeing that he didn't speak, the swaying Zhang Yuyao grabbed Zhang Suin's neck, and asked in a shrill and trembling voice, "Young master son, may I ask, where is my husband?" Zhang's son was crazy. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty and looked at the people around him who were raising their hammers high, as if they would fly away if he said yes. He said in a trembling voice, "Zhang Feng, your second uncle, why don't you fart?" Chapter 686. Cheng Chumo's voice was heard. The people who had just gone up the mountain followed Cheng Chumo's gaze and looked at the person on the sentry post. Although it was dark and only a little bit of torchlight swayed in the wind, the people could still vaguely see a young man in Xian leaning on the railing and looking down foolishly. That person, if not Zhang Feng, who was he? Feng Zi. Zhang Feng. Prince Zhang. Immediately, the people exclaimed. Zhang Feng slapped his face. Before he could express his feelings, Wei Shu kicked him on the butt and kicked him down the sentry post. Fortunately, Cheng Chumo was below. Even if he was a jerk, he reached out a hand and firmly caught Zhang Feng, so that he would not make a fool of himself in public. At this moment, Li Yuan and Sun Simiao, who were in the room, were accompanied by Old Gao and Old Village Chief. They stood on the doorstep and watched for a while with smiles on their faces. Li Yuan rubbed his belly and said, "Old Village Chief, go prepare a table of the dishes that Feng Zi taught you." How could the village chief not know the seriousness of the matter? Not to mention anything else, this Sun Simiao did not dare to be negligent. Moreover, who was the old man in white following the old elementary scholar? Although the old village head did not know, but he could imagine that the old man from Chang'an University, other than the old elementary scholar, could only be the crown prince's junior master, Li Gang. At that time, this matter caused an earthquake in Chang'an City. The news that the young master of the crown prince resigned and went to teach at Chang'an University also made the people in Tonghui Fang straighten their backs. At this time, Zhang Feng's 2 wives and father-in-law came. No matter what, this was also Zhang Feng's home. How could there be no wine in this house? "Zhengwazi, what are you waiting for? Go and slaughter the sheep and the chickens. Old He, don't just stand there. Go and slaughter some pigs with Zhengwazi. Remember, it's mainly their hind legs and tails. Guzi, Zhuzi, you 2 brats, go and get the beggar's chicken. Steamed bun, follow your mother to the wine cellar to move the wine." The old village chief waved his walking stick and shouted as he walked. Although it was the middle of the night and most of the people were gathered at the mountain gate to watch the show, once the old village chief shouted, everyone dispersed. As for Xiao Xiao, who was following Jingshu, the moment she saw steamed bun, she bared her teeth and hugged steamed bun in her arms, refusing to let him go anywhere. The 2 girls hadn't seen each other for a long time. At this time, Xiao Xiao took out a bag of snacks from her small pocket. The 2 girls looked at Zhang Feng, Jingshu, Zhang Yuyao, and Han Xian. They ate while giggling nonstop. Embarrassed, Zhang Feng glared at the 2 little girls, which instantly made Jingshu furious. She hugged Xiao Xiao and held steamed bun in her hand. She didn't even look at Zhang Feng and entered the house. There was no choice. There were too many people here, and the only habitable house was Zhang Feng's. She hurriedly entered the house and heaved a deep sigh of relief. Zhang Yuyao's cheeks were also burning. She wanted to say something to Zhang Feng. However, seeing that there were people all around, she could only stomp her feet in anger and follow Jingshu into the house. This time, they couldn't enter the house. Everyone could only light a bonfire on the flat ground at the mountain gate. Everyone sat cross-legged around the bonfire and asked Zhang Feng what he was doing. Zhang Feng was speechless. Shrugging his shoulders, he looked at the crowd and said, "As you can see, I'm still alive and kicking. And I fell from such a high place and nothing happened. No, we're asking, what the hell are you doing today? Do you know that old He and the others spread the news of you to the foot of the mountain? Do you know that Chang'an City was almost turned upside down?" First, Jingshu rushed to Shao Mountain with a pair of scissors, and then the Zhang mansion rushed to the city gate with a stick. "Do you think you haven't made enough trouble?" The old Xiuzai was so angry that his beard was trembling. Is this Prince Zhang Feng? At this time, an old man in white clothes and white beard, who was sitting between Li Yuan and the old Xiuzai, glanced at Zhang Feng and asked. Zhang Feng was shocked. He looked at the old man's clothes and hurriedly stood up. "Are you the Crown Prince's master, Mr. Wenji?" "I, Zhang Feng, am here to pay my respects to Mr. Wenji." Zhang Feng saw that Li Gang didn't say anything and just looked at him indifferently, as if he wanted him to give an explanation. Zhang Feng said helplessly, "In fact, this is a misunderstanding. I've thought many times about what kind of situation I would meet Mr. Wenji, but today, I hope Mr. Wenji won't take offense. What happened today wasn't my intention. My intention was..." Zhang Feng could only recount the whole thing that he explained to Li Yuan and the others once more. Li Gang frowned and ignored Zhang Feng. Instead, he looked at the old Xiaozai and asked, "Brother Zihuai, was the magical wine you gave me before made by Zhang Feng?" The old Xiaozai nodded. After thinking about the ins and outs of the matter, he sighed and said, "Fengzi, you also know that old he and the others are dull people. In the future, although they can be smooth and sly, it depends on the person. Look at how you scared old he and the others. Look at us old bones. If old man's guess is right, the mountain is not peaceful today, is it?" Chapter 687. As the old scholar spoke, he glanced at Li Yuan. He knew Li Yuan, and Li Yuan naturally also knew the old scholar. However, at this moment, the two of them only cupped their fists. "I didn't expect Brother Li to also come." The old elementary scholar sighed. Li Yuan smiled and said, "Since I parted with Brother Zihuai, it's been almost 10 years. Brother Zihuai is just like before." After the two of them simply greeted each other, it could be considered that the previous contradiction was resolved. And the old scholar also finally understood the meaning of the Li royal family from Li Yuan's words. That meaning was self-evident. They had no intention of finding trouble with him at all. If they did, how could he live comfortably in Chang'an city until now? Perhaps they already knew about him, but he himself was still brooding over the matter of the Sui dynasty. The old scholar shook his head and no longer said anything. He changed the topic and said, "This kid's nature isn't bad. This time, as you can see, it's a misunderstanding. I hope Brother Li can be more forgiving." "Haha, Brother Zihuai, you still don't know? In this Chang'an University, you're the chancellor and also the dean. But in this White Deer College, old man is already the honorary vice dean. If he didn't know this kid's temperament, do you think old man would come to this place?" The two of them looked at each other, and Zhang Feng's head was about to explode. "Won't come here? That's good. Go down the mountain right now. I guarantee that gongs and drums will fill the sky, and firecrackers will sound all the way to send you off." Zhang Feng couldn't wait for the old man to go down the mountain right now. This old guy seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. His myriad of tricks couldn't escape old man Li's eyes. This feeling was very unpleasant. But the old man didn't go down the mountain and had plans to stay here permanently. This made Zhang Feng somewhat embarrassed, but he couldn't do anything about Li Yuan. At this moment, listening to Li Yuan's words, Zhang Feng could only roll his eyes. And in his heart, he was also silently guessing the old scholar's identity. Brother Zihuai? Time separated? This old elementary scholar was something. The mysterious Confucian scholar was also acquainted with the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang. It seemed that the two of them had a close relationship. Furthermore, he seemed to be an old acquaintance of the old Master Li, who was a merchant. This made Zhang Feng even more curious. However, the two of them only spoke simple words that Zhang Feng couldn't understand at all. Then, the two of them went from ignoring each other to putting their arms around each other's shoulders. This was what shocked Zhang Feng the most. This was awesome. This was truly awesome. "Li Gan, is this how the old man makes friends?" Zhang Feng kicked Li Chengqian, who was sitting next to him, and asked. Li Chengqian glanced at the old scholar and randomly made up a reason. 10 years ago, my old man met the old scholar on the business road. But later, he encountered the Sui dynasty incident. This parting was as long as 10 years. Previously, he saw that the old scholar looked familiar, but he didn't confirm it. Finally, when Chang'an University opened, he suddenly remembered. But he didn't know what the two old men were playing at. If you want to know, go ask the two old men. Li Chengqian didn't lower his voice. On the contrary, he basically gave everyone an explanation. Naturally, Li Yuan and the old scholar could also hear it. But Li Gang just remained silent. He looked at Zhang Feng with a smile and said, "Kid, to be able to gain Brother Zihuai's favor, your future is limitless. But by all means, don't go astray. Don't let Brother Zihuai be bitterly disappointed." Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. But he still got up and respectfully saluted. "I'll remember it. I say, Brother Wenji, don't scare him. This kid has always been timid. Today's matter, you all understand now. It's all a misunderstanding. I hope you can give me some face. Brother Zihuai, you worry too much. If it weren't for this kid's character, courage, and insight, as well as this so-called innovation and popularizing the common people, do you think Old Man and the others are idle?" "Old Man," Brother Li said that in a few days, Brother Bashi will also come up the mountain to teach. At that time, us old men will also have a good time on this mountain. Sun Simiao stroked his beard and laughed. Hearing this, the old scholar was shocked and hurriedly asked, "Brother Li, is Brother Bashi really coming up the mountain?" Li Yuan laughed loudly. Looking at Zhang Feng, who didn't know whether to stand or sit, he said, "It's all because of this kid's trick that Brother Bashi was fascinated. Otherwise, do you think Brother Bashi would suddenly stop writing and then announce that he would come up the mountain in a high-profile manner? It's all because of this kid's trick." Hearing this, everyone looked at Zhang Feng in great shock. Zhang Feng laughed awkwardly and said, "Don't listen to the old man's nonsense. This kid can invite Mr. Bashi, that's also based on my ability. Moreover, Mr. Bashi has a discerning eye, that's why he came up the mountain. It's not some kid's trick. If this spreads out, this kid won't have any face." Ha! Everyone burst into laughter. Although everyone more or less knew a little, but at this time, hearing Zhang Feng say this, everyone was really stunned. Who was Bashi? Yu Shernan was one of the 4 great Confucian scholars of the present age. He was also the emperor's favorite person. Since this kid was able to poach him, he must be really talented. Moreover, this matter happened in a small tavern, so people only knew a few words about it. At this time, Li Yuan let out another big news. "You still don't know, this kid's ulterior motive is not in the wine. He wants to dig the 4 great scholars up the mountain so that he can be a hands-off shopkeeper." Chapter 688. Conversations with Scholars. Especially with these great scholars, especially with his elders, it was a very troublesome thing. When he thought of his previous life, when he followed his elders out, Zhang Feng suddenly felt that it was nothing. Even if his face was pinched and his head was pulled out, at least he could understand what they were saying. But now, this was a kind of **king torture. This was simply not a place for people to stay. Cheng Chumo and the others had already run away, along with the several big black men behind Li Gang, as well as the stubborn Chang and university students. Zhang Feng was so angry that his teeth itched. That direction was clearly the place where he hid his wine. When he saw the chicken and duck in Zhang Xuan's hands, Zhang Feng's head was dizzy. These bastards ate Lao Tzu's food, drank Lao Tzu's food, and now they king treat Lao Tzu as heir in front of him? Moreover, he couldn't run away even if he wanted to now. He could only look at the fire with his head down and use the fire stick to poke at the blazing flames on the bonfire. Then, under Zhang Feng's aghast gaze, Jing Shu, holding the zither, and Zhang Yuyao leisurely passed by him without even looking at him. In this way, they joined Cheng Chumo and the others' bonfire party, causing waves of wolf howls. Zhang Feng was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, when Jingshu's zither sounded, Li Yuan and the others also stopped talking, pointed at Zhang Feng, and then suddenly burst into a burst of loud laughter. Forget it, forget it. Let's not leave this kid here. This kid is probably going crazy now." The old elementary scholar had been observing Zhang Feng the entire time. He had known that this kid would not be able to sit still. However, he knew all of these people and had a good relationship with them, so he hadn't had the time. Now that he heard the sound of the zither, he dismissed Zhang Feng. Seeing Zhang Feng withdraw, Li Yuan looked meaningfully at the old Xiuzai and said, "Brother Zihuai, for so many years, the few of us outside have always been worried about you. I didn't expect that you would find such a good seedling when you arrived. Not bad, not bad. We are really envious." Hearing this, the old scholar sighed and said, Brother Li, what are you saying? This kid Zhang Feng is very talented. This old man is old, I can only help him a little when I can still move. To be honest, at the beginning I really wanted to accept him as my disciple, but you all know what happened to him later, especially Brother Li, this kid is not a fish in a pond. But fortunately, to be able to witness him slowly grow up from decadence, this old man's life is not in vain. Li Gang sighed and said, Brother Zihuai, I think you are treating this kid as your own child? Hearing this, the old scholar was silent. After a moment, he shook his head and sighed. Smelling the meat fragrance coming from the kitchen not far away, he said, Is this something Feng Zi spread? Seeing that the old scholar didn't want to say more about this matter, Li Yuan patted him on the shoulder and said, It seems that this is the first time old man tasted Feng Zi's cooking before Brother Zihuai. This is braised pig trotters. It was originally a stinky dish, but after being cooked by Feng Zi, it became irresistible. If you like it, I can send a few chefs to your academy. Or do you want to go up the mountain too? The old scholar sighed and shook his head. Since I promised Feng Zi this academy, old man still has to help him look after it. Don't you guys go up the mountain? Li Yuan was silent. At this moment, the scenes of his youth, and when he was an official in the Sui dynasty were like reflections, flowing in his mind. At that time, which one of the guys here wasn't in high spirits? But now? Since you have decided, I can't say much. If you need anything, just tell those bastards in the academy, and they will pass it to me or my son. Come, let's go into the house. Tonight, we won't go back until we are drunk. 10 years, we haven't gathered like this for 10 years. While speaking, Li Yuan stood up with the help of the old eunuch, pointed to the house and said. Only then did they take a look at the noisy figures of Zhang Feng and others, sighed and entered the house. It was as if the noise of Zhang Feng and others now was the reflection of their past. It was so sad, so enviable. Seeing that the old guys had entered the house, Cheng Chumo and others finally broke out of their nature and howled. Following the sound of Jingshu's zither, they kept making comical movements. In the bonfire, they raised wine jars high and drank to their heart's content. After 3 rounds of drinking, finally, roasted whole lambs and beggar's chickens were placed around the bonfire, forming a circle. Li Chengqian shouted, Everyone, stop. After shouting it a few times, everyone finally stopped clamoring. Li Chengqian pointed at the fragrant braised pig trotters and pigtails that old he brought over and said, You Bao Lin, you Bao Qi, Fang Yi, and all of you little brats. If all of you want to enter White Deer Academy, then what are all of you waiting for? Why don't you come and greet your teacher now? Students you Bao Lin, you Bao Qi, and Fang Yi greet teacher. Chapter 689. They had wanted to come to this academy for a long time. Every time they saw these people showing off when they went back, they felt like a cat was scratching their hearts. At this time, whether the crown prince said anything or not, they would think of a way to settle this matter. That was, they would not leave. Especially the Yuqi brothers. These two had heard from their father at home about Zhang Feng's various abilities. They had also heard about the things that happened a few days ago. However, because they were at Chang'an University, they did not have time to go up the mountain. But when they went up the mountain tonight, good Lord, this mountain was called Envious. After seeing that Zhang Feng was fine, they were also tempted. After seeing these 3 talking, those stubborn children also bowed to Zhang Feng in 2s and 3s. When Zhang Feng saw this, he could not help but feel embarrassed. It was not that he did not know about these people's matters. They were all a bunch of stubborn people. If they went up the mountain, how could it be? However, before he could say anything, Cheng Chumo hooked his arm around Zhang Feng's neck and pointed to the 2 men who were like iron towers. He said, Let me introduce you. This is old Feng's child. He has been at Chang'an University. Since you came up the mountain today, then stay. When Zhang Feng heard this, he clasped his hands and said, It's an honor to meet you. When Fang Yai heard this, he hurriedly bowed back and said, I have heard of Brother Zhang's talent. Seeing it today, it is indeed extraordinary. Cheng Chimo pointed at the 2 Yuqi brothers and said, These 2 men are the 2 sons of Yu Baolin and Yu Baoqi, who were tricked by you a few days ago and vomited blood. What do you think? Are they the same as old Yu? He's a natural-born general. When Zhang Feng heard this, he clicked his tongue in wonder. Gao Can, who had just rushed back from the foot of the mountain with the crowd, snorted coldly. He seemed to be very unhappy. It couldn't be anything other than his displeasure. A few days ago, Zhang Feng sent him down the mountain to tinker with some things at the foot of the mountain. When the people at the foot of the mountain went up the mountain, he knew that Zhang Feng had an accident. That was why he went up the mountain with a murderous look. After asking Ma Zhou, he knew the reason. Now, no matter who asked him to go down the mountain, he would not do it. He just stood behind Zhang Feng like this. Even if Zhang Feng went to the toilet, he would follow him. Now that he saw two men who were as muscular as him, he was naturally displeased. And this cold snort instantly infuriated the Yuchi brothers. The three of them glared at each other. The corner of Zhang Feng's mouth twitched. Is this old Yu's child? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. When he asked about Chengchumo, Yuchi Baolin was the first to protest. He clenched his fists and pouted. The three of them disappeared into the darkness. This made Zhang Feng sigh with emotion. What kind of King logic was this? But at this time, he couldn't care so much. He only shouted at the three of them, "Go easy on them. We're all brothers. Don't play dirty." Don't worry. This is the way these two idiots work. They can't bear to see others stronger than them. If they don't fight, they won't be able to live peacefully on the mountain in the future. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a headache. He glared at Li Qingqian and said, "What kind of playthings did you find for me?" Li Qingqian spread out his hands. "These are all talents. Although you saw their stubborn side, you didn't see their stubborn side." So, in the future, Zhang Feng was speechless. He glared at Li Qingqian and said, "Lao Tzu doesn't care about these things. Let me give you a word of advice. Be careful not to bite off more than you can chew. In the future, I'll leave their harmony to you. If anyone dares to cause trouble on the mountain, get lost. This will be included in the school rules. If anyone dares to cause trouble or fight, there's no need for a reason. Those who beat others, beat them to death and throw them down the mountain. Those who were beaten, get lost from Lao Tzu." Li Qingqian was stunned. Why should those who were beaten get lost? Aren't the victims wronged? Zhang Feng spread his hands. If you can't beat them, it's because of personal reasons. Cowards. Our White Deer College doesn't accept cowards. What kind of logic was this? Li Qingqian was speechless. In the end, he shook his head and pointed at the remaining stubborn people. What about them? No, get lost. If anyone can get into the top 3 of Chang'an University this season, come. If you can't even get into the top 3, how can you have the face to come to White Deer College? In an instant, those people were pissed off, but there was nothing they could do. When they came in, they were forced to come in. Now that they saw how good the mountain was, who wouldn't be envious? There was no other way. Everyone could only hang their heads. Under Li Qingqian's signal, they went down the mountain dejectedly. However, the anger in many people's eyes was filled with a sense of unwillingness to admit defeat. Li Qingqian didn't notice this. However, Zhang Feng didn't care. Because if they were too stubborn, the atmosphere on the mountain would be foul. If they didn't get rid of their ruffians, they would get lost sooner or later. Why not give them a chance? Whether or not they could go up the mountain would depend on their luck. This matter was settled. Zhang Feng rubbed his belly and said, "Let's eat, let's eat. Lao Tzu hasn't touched a drop of water since this afternoon." However, when Zhang Feng was about to grab the lamb leg, Li Qingqian stopped him with a smile. "It's rare for so many important people to be here today. Kid, you made such a fuss. Shouldn't you do something?" Chapter 690. Fengzi, what you did today was not right. What do you think will happen if you don't do something about it? Dugo was still twisting his neck and swinging his arms as he spoke. He looked like he wanted to challenge Zhang Feng again. Zhang Sun then leaned in front of Zhang Feng's ear and fanned the flames. "Actually, it's nothing. I just don't want you to be a bachelor. Now that your father-in-law is sitting there, and Li Gang is also here, do you want to rely on your 2 mouths to keep them here? Why don't you think about why they're willing to stay here? Now that you've done this and they know about it, it means that Chang'an City is in chaos. Do you still want Yushernan to go up the mountain?" Zhang Feng glanced at Jing Shu, who was playing the zither, and then looked at Zhang Yuyao, who was whispering to him while hugging a steamed bun. He could not help but feel a little awkward. Li Chengqian saw that Zhang Feng was still playing dumb. He could not help but look up and say, "The wind is blowing, the moon is like a hook, the lonely shadow on the cold river provokes the cold clothes." When Dugo heard that, he also stood up and drank a mouthful of wine. If it were not for the bruises on his face, his current appearance would have attracted the hearts of young girls. But now, it was already good enough that he could not hold back his laughter. However, he also recited, "It rained night after night in the small tower, the bell in the corner tower rang with laughter, like a flourishing brocade, not like the flames of war in the human world." Good poem. Young Master Du is really a role model for us. Young Master Li is not bad either. This poem has a deep meaning. Both of you are students of teachers. Both of you are so talented, then are teachers, aren't they? The recitation of the two naturally attracted the students who had been hiding in the dark. Even Hao Chujun, Ma Zhou, and the others looked at the people sitting in the bonfire with flickering eyes. However, they also knew their identities and did not go forward. But after the two poems, these people could not sit still. They all went forward. And Li Chengqian and the others could not sit still either. You sang one song, I sang another, causing waves of exclamations. In the end, Cheng Chumo and the others also went up to recite poems. However, in the end, they only caused waves of laughter. Amidst the crowd's uproar, Jing Shu was also pulled up and sang a poem, causing Li Yuan and the others to involuntarily join in the enjoyment by the bonfire. Even Zhang Yuyao, who had always been shy, walked out under the pull of Xiao Xiao and steamed bun. She recited a poem, and then hurriedly hid in Jingshu's embrace with a red face. In the end, Li Gang looked at Zhang Feng and smiled. I've always heard that Zhang Feng is a master of both poetry and poetry. Why are you so quiet tonight? Why don't you sing a song to liven things up? Hey brother Wenji, look at your appearance now. You clearly despise these brats' poems for being too lousy. Everyone, if you have any good poems, feel free to say them. As the honorary vice dean of White Deer College, the old man will take out 100 taels of gold as the prize tonight. If anyone's poem is good, not only will you get the 100 taels of gold, the old man will also guarantee that when the time comes for the official opening of the college, you will have the opportunity to directly enter the Great Confucian School. What do you think? Li Yuan could not help but use this sentence to fan the flames. Everyone could not help but be stunned. They looked at Li Yuan for a long time before coming back to their senses. Then, someone asked excitedly, "Old sir, what you said, does it count?" Old man Li Gang, I'm sure everyone has heard of him. Moreover, even if you don't know the name of the old man, you will still remember the name of the godly doctor. Tonight, the old man and steamed bun will be the guarantor. What do you think? In an instant, everyone burst into an uproar. Crown Prince's junior tutor Li Gang. Teacher Wenji. To be able to be the Crown Prince's teacher, how could he be bad? Although he had retired, the title of Great Confucian was still shining, not to mention the godly doctor Sun Simiao. Hearing this, Sun Simiao smiled faintly. Since Brother Li wants to play, then let's play to our heart's content tonight. The old man Yi is willing to take out 100 taels of gold as the bet. This time, everyone could not sit still. In that case, I'll go first. Snow in front of the hall, howling in the wind, skinny horses running in the wind, water in the snow in the water, like snow. Candlelight shadow, the moon is slightly curved, the night is slightly cold, the stars are dim and yellow. Yesterday, candlelight shadow, many voices reciting poems sounded from around the bonfire. As more and more poems sounded, more and more people gathered around. Even those who had already fallen asleep could not help but stretch their heads out and listen to the clamor on the mountain. Their eyes revealed a tinge of envy. For hours later, after the wine and meat had dispersed, Hao Chujun came to the rescue. Guijingyi, Ma Zhou, and the others did not disappoint and fought hard. However, they could not compete for first place. In the end, as the dean, Zhang Feng, was pushed up by the crowd. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng expectantly, waiting for him to compose a poem. Zhang Feng was also speechless. Once Lao Tzu made his move, would they still have a chance to survive? However, these few people that he had taken care of did not disappoint. After a flash of thought, he smiled and cupped his hands. He did not know what these people were thinking, but he knew that this was the time to show off his skills. This was the chance that Old Man Li gave him to establish his prestige. He could only helplessly say, "Since the seniors are so fond of me, then I will show my incompetence. However, if anyone can solve my math, then the first place will belong to him. However, from now on Zhang Feng, will protect you guys." Chapter 691. When Lai Ji and the others heard this, they were so excited that they were about to kowtow. However, Zhang Feng's expression turned cold. He looked at them and said, "However, if you kneel down to Lao Tzu like this, then get out of the mountain tomorrow morning." Hearing this, everyone's expressions suddenly changed. Li Gang and Sun Simiao couldn't help but frown. Only Li Yuan held his breath and looked at these guys with a smile. "What do you mean by that, teacher? In our line of work, we are also students. What's wrong with the etiquette of kowtowing to teacher?" Hao Chujun plucked up his courage and asked. Zhang Feng glanced at him, then looked at Ma Zhou and said, "Ma Zhou, tell them about the rules of White Deer College. This student understands." Hearing this, Ma Zhou bowed respectfully. Then he bowed to Li Yuan and the others and said, "Teacher once said that a man has gold under his knees. No matter how you bowed before, from the moment you enter White Deer College, except for your parents, heaven, and earth, anyone who dares to kneel will be immediately expelled from the college and will never be accepted." Teacher's original words were like this. A man can kneel to heaven and earth, kneel to his parents. This is filial piety. As a man, he must have a lofty and unyielding character. Once the lofty and unyielding character is gone, then this person will only bow and scrape to others for the rest of his life. He is not considered a man. Buzz. Everyone's mind was instantly filled with muffled thunder. This was what Zhang Feng said. Especially Li Gang, after looking at Zhang Feng in astonishment, he asked, "Brother Li, is this really what Zhang Feng said?" Li Yuan laughed and said, "It is indeed this kid. Otherwise, who do you think would have the guts? However, this makes sense. What do you think?" Li Gang was silent. At this moment, Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao's eyes were full of splendor. The two girls held hands, their eyes glistening with tears. They stared at Zhang Feng, as if Zhang Feng's shoulders, which were not considered broad, were so stalwart. After Ma Zhou finished speaking, he bowed to everyone one by one before returning to his original position. However, his chest was heaving up and down violently. At this time, Hao Chujun and the others were still immersed in Ma Zhou's words. After a while, they bent their bodies and bowed. If not for their waist supporting them, their heads would have been on the ground. This student will remember principal's teachings. This student will remember. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Since you know, then follow Ma Zhou. After some time, I will personally teach you." "Thank you, teacher." "Feng Zi, stop wasting time. Hurry up, old man is tired." Li Yuan was somewhat impatient. He urged, "But let's make things clear first. If the old man knows, don't talk about it anymore. Otherwise, the old man will look down on you." Zhang Feng smiled. What he knew was not only limited to the 300 Tang poems. "Bring me some wine." Zhang Feng shouted angrily. Cheng Chumo and the others rummaged around for a while. In the end, they only found a jar of wine under Zhang Feng's bed and handed it to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng opened the mud seal. Taking advantage of the time to find the wine, he also discussed all the poems in his memory and drank a mouthful of wine. Zhang Feng then pointed to the moon in the sky and shouted angrily, "When will the moon be bright?" With a cup of wine in my hand, I asked the blue sky. "I wonder what year it is in the heavenly palace. I want to ride the wind and go back, but I am afraid of the jade palace. It is too cold at the top, dancing with the shadows. How is it like in the human world?" After Zhang Feng finished speaking, he drank again. What he didn't know was that at this time, on the entire peak of Shao Mountain, as long as someone was listening, they were all stunned at this time. Moreover, on the entire mountain, other than the sound of the wind and the explosion of the flames, there was no other sound. Even the sound of the insects could not be heard. At this time, Zhang Feng somewhat dizzily glared at Cheng Chumo. After looking at the words, 65 degrees, written on the jar of wine, he somewhat wanted to curse. At this time, after 2 big gulps, he was somewhat drunk. After all, from the afternoon until now, his mouth did not have a single bite of food. Under this kind of fierce drinking, it would be strange if he could not get drunk. Turn the red pavilion, low and beautiful house, illuminated without sleep. Following Zhang Feng's loud shout again, he seemed to be deranged, like a lunatic, but everyone had long been stupefied. The first thing Li Yuan did when he came back to his senses was to glare at the old eunuch behind him with a sharp gaze. The old eunuch understood and hurriedly found ink and paper to record in a hurry. Should not hate, how can the moon be round when we are apart? People have joys and sorrows, the moon waxes and wanes, this matter is difficult since ancient times. I hope that people will be together for a long time. With the last word, a gust of wind blew. A gust of wind blew. Under the moonlight, Zhang Feng's thin and weak body, coupled with his head raised to the sky to drink, looked so lonely and bleak under the contrast of the bonfire and the moonlight. Everyone was stupefied. Zhang Yuyao and Jing Shu had already stepped forward with tears in their eyes. One on the left and one on the right, they held Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng continued to sing loudly. The world is a big dream, how many autumns are there in life? At night, the wind and leaves have already sounded in the corridor, looking at the bun on my eyebrows, wine is cheap, often worried about the lack of guests, the moon is full of clouds, who will share the lonely light of the mid-autumn, a cup of desolation looking to the north. Chapter 692. This night was destined to be a crazy night, a sleepless night. But the night would eventually pass. Zhang Feng did not know when he passed out drunk, but when he woke up, it was already late in the morning. Other than the people who were working as usual, the old scholar, Jing Shu, Zhang Yuyao, and the others left as if they had never been there. Quietly. If Zhang Feng had not seen the bonfire not far away, he would have thought that it was a long dream. Finally, when he was washing up, he suddenly saw 2 bright red lipstick marks on his cheeks. Zhang Feng was no longer calm. He quickly turned over the quilt, and when he saw that there was nothing on the sheets, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that last night was real, but what did Lao Tzu do last night? Gao can come out. Zhang Feng was also a little worried and shouted at the door. After a while, Gao Can, who looked like a wooden stake, slowly appeared in front of Zhang Feng. Although his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, one of his legs was lame, and one of his hands was drooping, Zhang Feng was speechless. However, although he had been beaten up, the dull look in his eyes had disappeared. Zhang Feng asked in surprise, "How long did you fight last night?" "About 2 hours. Who won?" "Me, those 2 were knocked out by me." Zhang Feng was speechless. Looking at Gao Can, he could only give him a thumbs up. "Awesome." "Oh right, what happened to me last night? Do you know? You were drunk and howled for half the night. In the end you passed out. Your 2 wives took care of you until dawn. Those who went up the mountain all went down." Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He continued to ask, "What did I do last night? I remember that I was reciting poems. What happened after that?" Gao Can scratched his head and said, "Last night, it seemed like you were the one shouting. Then, there were more than 10 people behind Old Master Li writing. The rest of them didn't even dare to fart. They just stared at you. As for how much you recited, I don't know. I only know that you stood there for 4 hours. 4 hours? Does that mean that Lao Tzu recited a poem for 4 hours? *CK. Could something have happened to him? Wasn't this 2F** King shocking? Li Bai had written hundreds of poems when he was drunk. How long had that been? This is a single breath of air. Wasn't this a little too shocking?" Zhang Feng hurriedly asked. "Then, what were their expressions in the end? Is there any reaction?" Gao Can thought for a moment, looked outside the door and said, "They were all talking about monsters, perverts, and whatnot. In the end, Mr. Li Gang and an old man called Zihuai looked worried and went down the mountain that very night. They also said that no one was allowed to spread the news." When Zhang Feng heard this, he couldn't help but feel relieved. Fortunately, the old elementary scholar was here. Otherwise, there would have been trouble this time. Zhang Feng didn't say anything else. He hurriedly washed up, ate a mouthful of rice, and hurried out of the house. But as he stood outside the door and looked at the people rushing outside, Zhang Feng didn't know what to do. It was as if no one recognized him. Li Gan had already run away. Cheng Chumo and the rest were also at the construction site, trying to smooth things over. Zhang Feng walked all the way. Not to mention old he, even steamed bun ignored him. It was as if Zhang Feng had done something that angered the heavens last night. This time, Zhang Feng was completely dumbfounded. What the F***ck did I do? In the end, Zhang Feng sat in Jing Tufu's house and looked at him. Jing Tufu opened his mouth and said, "Feng Zi, where did you hear all those things you said last night?" "What?" "The poem they were talking about. Last night, after all of them listened to your poem, they all thought that you were a poet immortal." Zhang Feng pointed at himself and asked with his eyes wide open, "Because of this, these people ignored me today?" Old he looked outside the door and whispered, "This is what the old village chief said. His chicken went to Hua Sheng Temple to pray. He said he was going to ask the Bodhisattva." Zhang Feng was speechless. Was it necessary? Wasn't it just a few poems? If they wanted, he had a bunch here. Was it necessary to ignore him? "Zheng Tufu, you don't believe me. Ma Zhou, come over here." When Zhang Feng was talking to Zheng Tufu, he saw Ma Zhou hiding at the side and looking at him. He shouted angrily. Only then did Ma Zhou cower and come out. Zhang Feng asked, "Why didn't you greet me when you saw me? Why did you run? Why are you hiding? Is this what you've learned from books? Don't you know that a gentleman should be magnanimous?" This student greets the teacher. This student was stupid just now." Ma Zhou felt wronged, but he still bowed obediently. Zhang Feng then asked, "At the end of last night, did old Master Li and Mr. Li Gang say anything?" "No, they just warned us to seriously comprehend your heroism last night. He said that it was a kind of realm that even they could not be envious of. He said that you have entered another realm. I don't understand." Zhang Feng was speechless. "Don't think too much. This is just a kind of epiphany. Do you understand epiphany?"